is just an initial amount to help those hurricane victims recover, go to the grocery store, get their immediate needs, and that longer-term help is on the way, and that FEMA officials have been on the ground, National Guard has been on the ground, active duty troops are on the ground as well to help these hurricane victims who are suffering. Still, the former president has been pushing these false claims about it, not backing away from it at all. And that is why you're hearing from President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris telling him to stop playing politics with this moment, stop spreading the misinformation. The president saying once again today that it's causing unnecessary panic, Elizabeth.
Rachel Scott live in Detroit, where former President Trump is speaking just behind her there. Let's go to ABC's Mary Alice Parks. Mary Alice, we heard President Biden also detail the response from federal officials, laying out that this will be a long haul to rescue, recover, and rebuild. Did he sound that the federal response is prepared? Kind of give us the play-by-play of what is actually underway right now when it comes to the response to Milton on the ground from what we heard from the president.
Yeah, you heard him talk, Elizabeth, about all the calls that he's been having with local officials there on the ground, making sure that the federal government was responding to needs, that they are still doing a damage assessment, that local officials are trying to figure out where the direct needs are. He talked about how FEMA will be setting up local neighborhood response centers so people can come and apply for more aid. But right now, the focus remains on search and recovery. We know that there's about 8,000 federal personnel that have been on the ground in the region. That includes about 1,500 search and rescue folks of the National Guard. He talked specifically about the work that the military is doing, his conversations with DOD to make sure that the Coast Guard and other sort of branches of the Pentagon are really making a point of supporting civilian search and rescue as well, that they bring an expertise in this moment that is really necessary and important. I mean, look, the president wants to make sure that people feel like the federal government is there and responding to the needs as they figure out what exactly those needs could be. And he said, you know, one of the big concerns is that often lives are lost in the days after a hurricane. Of course, concerns about all of that standing water, concerns about potable water, concerns about people's safety as they try to return home. But wow, Elizabeth, what a moment there at the end. That was really something when he looked straight into the camera and said the former president needed to knock it off. He said, help these people. You know, one of the biggest concerns out of this White House right now is that people will believe they aren't entitled to help or that they can't get help, that they can't get more aid. You heard President Biden say that it's just bizarre to spread a lie, he called it, that people are only going to get $750. He said that's immediate relief, but people can apply and get significantly more, often in the tens of thousands of dollars to help rebuild their homes and recover. And they want to make sure people know and are getting that assistance that they are entitled to, Elizabeth.
Right, and President Biden's delivery so clear, though, when he was asked, have you spoken to former President Trump? He chuckled, but then he looked straight at the camera. Jay O'Brien, also want to get your thoughts. We heard President Biden call on Congress to come back now because of the need for funding for the Small Business Administration. There are a lot of concerns about funding for FEMA. Is there a realistic possibility that lawmakers do come back early to get some of this relief package passed before the election now, less than a month away?
And it doesn't look like it. We've seen some resistance from congressional leadership, and then some members of Congress say, look, we would come back, but we don't know if the full request would even be ready for us to process and vote on. What the president tried to do there was somewhat separate the need. He said, the request is ready right now for the SBA, the Small Business Administration. Congress should come back and deal with that because the SBA has a lot of tasks it needs to do in the aftermath of a storm like this to help small business owners. And then FEMA needs funding too, the president says, I'm paraphrasing him, but Congress can tackle that in theory, as Secretary Mayorkas also said earlier today, when they return in mid-November after the election. And if there's another storm between now and then, FEMA would rely on money it already has in its bank account and maybe pull from existing more long-term programs, try to make ends meet for that storm, and then get that congressional appropriation when Congress comes back. All of it looking more likely, though, Congress is going to deal with it when they come back in mid-November, both FEMA and the SBA. One more thing to point out, though, when it comes to this misinformation, when former President Trump and others say that you only qualify or you only get $750 or fewer in that initial interview with FEMA, it's worth pointing out some people don't necessarily understand the difference. FEMA gives you a check for $750. That is true. And then what they do typically is they come to your home, they conduct an inspection, information. They assess the damage to your home or to your business or wherever you're applying for disaster relief funds. And then either the SBA if it's your business or FEMA if it's your home, cut you a check for the damage that you have incurred. And that's the confusion, right? Storm recovery is messy. It's confusing. You get one check and then you have to wait months or weeks or whatever for another one. That's where this misinformation is growing here, Elizabeth, in the confusion, in the messiness of disaster recovery.
A lot of confusion and messiness made worse by disinformation. I do just want to replay that pretty stunning moment from a couple minutes ago. Our team has cut the soundbite from President Biden with a very clear message today for former President Trump.
Are you kidding me? Mr. President Trump, former President Trump, get a life, man. Help these people.
Will you hold him accountable? Rachel Scott, you are there where former President Trump is delivering remarks in Detroit right now. Has the former president backed off of any of the disinformation that he's been spreading about FEMA and the federal response?
Yeah, no, he has not backed off of it. And in fact, it's actually increased, especially in the days after Hurricane Helene. I remember being on the ground there in Georgia as the former president was making a stop there, visiting an area that had been just completely gutted by that storm. He was already pushing these false claims that the Republican governor of Georgia couldn't even get in contact with President Biden. That obviously was not true. The two had talked earlier. It was a cordial, helpful conversation between Republican Governor Brian Kemp and also President Biden. And then since then, with another storm hitting the southeast, we've heard the former president really just dig into these false claims. He's on the stage right now. His focus here today is on the economy. He did talk about the federal government's response a little earlier, and he blasted it. I am sure when the former president gets off of this stage and his aides and advisors backstage show him what President Biden has said, he's not going to be very happy with that. We know that there's this tit for tat that is all going, but this idea that politics is now coming into this at a significant time where people are suffering, who are down there. I can imagine, similar to how the former president really wanted to go down to Georgia and visited that area that had been just completely ravaged and gutted by that storm. I am sure the former president and his advisors are talking about whether or not they will even make another appearance. But we are hearing now from really leaders, not only the president, the vice president, but I think leaders on both sides of the aisle. I can tell you, I talked to lawmakers on Capitol Hill who are just sort of pleading to leave the politics out of it at this point because of how much confusion that is causing these people that are in desperate need of assistance and help, Elizabeth.
No question. So many families wanting to know what relief they can get when they can go home. A lot of confusion added to that. Rachel Scott with former President Trump in Detroit, Mary Alice Parks at the White House, and Jay O'Brien here in Washington. Thank you all so much. Let's bring in WABC meteorologist Danny Beckstrom, who has the latest on Milton's path right now. Danny, give us an update on the strength and track of Milton still at this hour.
Yeah, Elizabeth, just in from the National Hurricane Center, Milton is now post-tropical, still with hurricane force winds. We're still seeing peak winds sustained right around 75 miles per hour, which is a lowest end, Category 1. But post-tropical, meaning it's lost some of those characteristics that you need to officially make it a tropical system. It's moving out into the Atlantic. What we're seeing right now, still, river flooding is continuing. Flood warnings ongoing for a large portion of rivers in central Florida. When you have 12 to 18 inches of rain fall in a 12-hour period, which is what we saw in parts of Tampa Bay over through St. Pete, it makes sense that the river flooding is ongoing. It will take a while for that river water to recede. But the rain bands are going to start moving offshore as Milton continues to pull away from the coastline. Remember, this is a fairly large tropical storm force wind field, up to 310 miles outside of the center, which means it needs to pull away 310 miles to see these wind speeds begin to back off. We do expect the wind to start to relax a little as we head toward late tonight. This is 4 p.m. This is now 5, 6 o'clock, and those numbers are starting to look better for the Space Coast up through portions of South Carolina. So things are looking better, but still a mess out there to clean up given the rain and the wind that we saw last night. Elizabeth?
WABC meteorologist Danny Beckstrom, know you'll keep following this for us. Thank you. We will be right back with a lot more news on Milton straight ahead.
Can you believe that in just 1 year they go from this to this? The play kits by Lovevery are there for all of the moments in between. When you're wondering how to get the most from playtime or how to help them hit a new milestone, the play kits make it easy and fun, with the right play essentials delivered just in time for their next stage, and practical guidance for parents. Be ready on day one with the Looker Play Kit, designed by experts for your child's developing brain. Visit loveevery.com to learn more.
This ship is heaven. There should be no guilt on a pleasure cruise. Doctor, it's your job to keep everybody alive.
No pulse. She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
Thanks so much for streaming with us. Our next guest recently moved north of Tampa to Wesley Chapel, Florida, because they thought it was a safer bet to avoid storms like Milton. Fortunately, this is what their new home looks like after the storm. They've only lived there for a few months. Today, Amanda and Blake Hudson are back with relatives in Tampa because of the damage. Thank you both so much for joining us. I'm so sorry to see what has happened to your home, and I know that this is just the beginning of a long road for you to rebuild. You have your young daughter with you. How are you holding up? Talk to us about what it's been like during this storm.
Yes, Lily was sitting with us, but got anxious, so she ran inside. So we let her escape. But it has been extremely unexpected. You move away from South Tampa and think you're avoiding the storms. We actually spent a lot of time down in South Tampa helping our family prepare, and didn't even think that this morning we would wake up to see water rushing in our house.
Just anguish to see that. What is what are you seeing around the neighborhood? Is it common that, what do you feel like will it take to kind of get the recovery back to start rebuilding from what you're seeing there?
So it's not the whole neighborhood that is flooded, but there are sections of the neighborhood that just seem to be lower lying. And unfortunately, our house is one of the lowest spots. And that's something we just didn't expect, being up in Wesley Chapel.
When you moved there, that was one of the reasons why you wanted to leave. How much did you prepare for this storm? Did you expect to see this kind of damage?
No, we didn't. We didn't expect any flooding at all. I mean, we're not in a flood zone whatsoever, so we didn't prepare for that. We kind of just prepared for, bad winds, things like that, but not flooding.
No, opened the door this morning and saw the water was an inch from the door, and within 30 minutes it was coming in the house. We actually had Blake's mother and 2 of our friends with all of their animals there with us because they were in Zone A, so they were getting out of the storm surge areas and the wind, and didn't even think that we would have such flash flooding issues there in our new home.
So sorry that you've had to go through this. We understand you don't have flood insurance. Do you have an idea of what the next steps are for your family from here? Will you be seeking out federal aid that we know is available? Talk to us about the next steps if you are able to think about what is next at this point.
We are actually just trying to figure that out. We've only been back here at Blake's mom's house for maybe 30 minutes to an hour now that we've got ourselves together, had assistance getting out of our house, and we're just kind of hoping to sit and chill for maybe a few minutes and then start getting in touch with insurance and figuring out what our next steps should be.
A long road ahead, and glad to see that you are both safe, but we will think of you as you continue on those next steps with you and your beautiful family. Thank you so much, Amanda and Blake Hudson, for joining us. The news never stops. I'm Elizabeth Schulze. We're going to have a lot more news ahead. Thanks so much for streaming it with us. Stick with us.
My moderate to severe Crohn's symptoms kept me out of the picture. Now I have Skyrizi.
I've got places to go and I'm feeling free. Controlling my Crohn's means everything to me. Control is everything to me.
And now I'm back in the picture. Feel significant symptom relief at 4 weeks with Skyrizi, including less abdominal pain and fewer bowel movements. Skyrizi helped visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. And with Skyrizi, many were in remission at 12 weeks, at 1 year, and even at 2 years.
Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, had a vaccine or plan to. Liver problems may occur in Crohn's disease.
Ask your gastroenterologist how to take control of your Crohn's with Skyrizi.
Control is everything to me.
Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
Here.
Thanks.
Like it. Oh, I'm gonna get us a snack.
Streaming live October 19th. It's a Disney Plus celebration.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Music's highest honor goes to Cher, Mary J. Blige, Ozzy Osbourne, Dave Matthews Band, Peter Frampton, Kool and the Gang, Jimmy Buffett, Dionne Warwick, A Tribe Called Quest, and Foreigner. Plus, performances by Dua Lipa, Kelly Clarkson, Jelly Roll, and more.
Outrageous!
The 2024 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Streaming live October 19th on Disney Plus.
Evil has always existed.
To understand this killer, you must reach the ecstatic.
FX's Grotesquerie, all new Wednesdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Reporting from northern Israel, I'm Martha Raddatz. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Everyone, I'm Elizabeth Schulze. Our top story this hour, rescue and recovery operations underway across the west coast of central Florida after Hurricane Milton plowed through the state with Category 3 winds and life-threatening storm surge. The death toll is now up to at least 10, a number that is expected to rise after Milton made landfall near Siesta Key, just south of Tampa, bringing along extreme winds, flash flooding, and at least 38 reported tornadoes. The predicted storm surge, up to 13 feet, now inundating some of the most densely populated areas on the coast, including Fort Myers. More than 18 inches of rain also recorded in Pinellas County. President Biden saying he's spoken with Governor Ron DeSantis and ready to provide to the state of Florida whatever it needs.
There's still very dangerous conditions in the state, and people should wait to be given an all clear by their leaders before they go out. We know from previous hurricanes that it's often the case that more lives are lost the days following the storm than actually during the storm itself. Vice President Harris and I have been in constant contact with the state and local officials. We're offering everything they need.
Our Jacqueline Lee is on the ground in St. Petersburg and joins us now for more. Jacqueline, give us the latest on what you're seeing there and the recovery and rescue efforts underway.
Hey, Elizabeth. Yeah, so we're outside of Tropicana Field, and you can see just how powerful Hurricane Milton was, ripping off this roof. It was 6 acres of fiberglass built to withstand 115-mile-an-hour winds. And aside from the roof, I mean, we were initially in downtown Tampa, driving over here to St. Petersburg when they finally did open up the bridges. We saw trees down, a lot of branches all over the place, and especially with buildings that still were under construction with scaffolding, we saw the scaffolding had collapsed as well. So it's, the damage throughout Florida is really something else. And obviously officials are just trying to discover who is still trapped, trying to rescue them, and get the water and the power back on. Elizabeth.
We do know that power is still a major issue. More than 3 million people without power across the state. What are you hearing about the timeline to try to restore power?
So officials have been saying their linemen are working around the clock. And if you remember, leading up to Hurricane Milton, DeSantis said that they had 50,000 linemen on hand. They also had resources coming from out of state into Florida. They were ready because they were expecting the power to go out to a large amount of customers. So they obviously can't pinpoint exactly when the power is going to go on. But of course, we do know they're working on it. I do want to point out here in Pinellas County, there's currently no running water. Hurricane Milton was so powerful that it knocked out the power or the water supply. There are multiple water main breaks. So there are crews now working to try to restore that. They're trying to pinpoint where exactly those holes are and try to repair them to get the water back on. Elizabeth.
I know you've been speaking with some residents there, Jacqueline, who rode out the storm. What are they telling you it's like, and what do they need right now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first off, you have to remember people in Florida A lot of them have said, we've dealt with hurricanes. We didn't really want to evacuate, especially if they lived on, a high floor in an apartment building. So one woman we spoke with, she lived on the 8th floor of her apartment building. She did not leave, but she said last night she was absolutely terrified. Not only did she say it sounded like a freight train, but she said that the wind and the rain were just bursting through her windows. It partially flooded her apartment. She sprinted inside to her to the staircase because she was so nervous that she was going to die inside her own apartment. She said she waited in that staircase all night long. This morning she was looking at the destruction here at Tropicana Fields. She said she was shocked. She's never dealt with a hurricane that was that powerful. Right here, Elizabeth.
You can see the power of that hurricane just behind you there. Jacqueline Lee, thank you so much for reporting on this. Let's bring in WABC meteorologist Danny Beckstrom for the latest on Milton's path right now. Danny, what do we know?
Elizabeth, as of the 2 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center, Milton is now post-tropical, still with hurricane force wind, max sustained at 75 miles per hour, but weakening still forecast as Milton continues over the open Atlantic. The threat isn't over yet. Still seeing rain bands for the Space Coast and ongoing river flooding. That's what happens when you see 12 to 18 inches of rainfall in portions of Tampa Bay. But as the rain bands pull away, conditions will improve, now focused on the northeast coast of Florida. But we're seeing the intense wind up through coastal Georgia into South Carolina as well. Rain bands moving offshore, wind will start to relax as we head towards sunset tonight as Milton officially pulls away. But let's back up. Let's watch landfall, right? Weakening from a Cat 5, but still to a major Category 3 as it made landfall Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern near Siesta Key as a major Category 3 hurricane. Check out these wind speeds. Tampa close to 100 miles per hour, peaking at 97, but over 100 miles per hour in St. Pete and Sarasota. And check out the rainfall. 18.5 inches of rain fell in St. Pete, a foot of rain for Tampa, because that northern eye wall just sat over this area for hours and poured rain. You can see that swath as it kind of moved across the state here. Again, 18.5 for St. Pete, 10 inches of rain for Lakeland, over 9 inches of rain for Daytona Beach. So no surprise, ongoing flooding still an issue. In fact, Tampa now setting a record for the wettest year with 77 inches of rain. That's almost double what they typically see in a year. Elizabeth?
Danny Beckstrom tracking it all for us. Thank you. We are joined now by a man who's been a familiar face helping people get their feet back on the ground after some of the country's worst storms. Lieutenant General Russell Honore led Joint Task Force Katrina. He's perhaps best known for coordinating military relief efforts in Louisiana in the aftermath of that devastating and historic storm. Lieutenant General, thanks so much for being with us again today. You were pretty critical of everyone from the White House down in the run-up to this storm. Then yesterday you told our Kira Phillips you felt better about things. What do you think today of the storm and the response so far?
Well, it's clear to be good coordination between the governor and FEMA and the White House. All those are critical to a quick response. But the real work is being done on the ground by the local first responders, and all that federal capacity that was moved in by FEMA, pre-deployment of ambulances to military helicopters to support the Florida Guard, that is working. And I was yelling loud because we didn't see the orders going out. The orders went out, and the plan is being executed. So I'm happy to see, and I've heard the President spoke a little while ago. They're looking at the level of support that federal authorities can provide working with U.S. non-com. Responding to a hurricane is doing the search and rescue, but it's a big logistics operation. And from my recommendations and studying and working with this since way before Katrina, you need clear command and control, and you need logistics, where you put subordinate commanders in counties and commanders at the state level, and it reduce the amount of bureaucracy, and those commanders can provide the enablers to open roads, provide tetanus shots, provide water as needed, and you cut out some of the layers of requests for support, because they got the logistics, they got the command and control, they got the communications, they can stand up cell towers, all that can be done. And they can help deliver food and water to people at distribution centers. It's a collaboration across the board.
The picture of the destruction, General, is only becoming clear now, not just from the hurricane itself, but also from the dozens of tornadoes that also hit Florida. What is your biggest concern for the people impacted by this storm and for that recovery and cleanup effort?
Is for the first responders. Every house has to be searched. And that's the work that's got to be done. The first round through for the search is the people that you can see. The second round is a knock on buildings and go inside building on the first and the second search. So that's a lot of work to do, and you need a lot of boots on the ground. You set up search and rescue zones, whether it's the FEMA team or SAR teams that are there, a National Guard team or active duty team, but people are assigned responsibilities inside of each search zone. Because the local first responders, they're going to still be trying to keep people alive, and you need more boots on the ground in that case. In New Orleans, we had about 280,000 homes that were underwater. It could be more than that in this area, but every house that was we might think that was evacuated, we got to knock on the door and see if anybody's in there.
Former President Trump has said this is the worst federal response to hurricanes, including the response to Helene and Milton, since and past Hurricane Katrina. Of course, you are all too familiar with many of the efforts there that were stalled, much needed aid to people who needed it at the time. What do you make of that criticism from the former president, and what's your response to this disinformation that's continuing to be spread at the highest levels of the campaign, the presidential campaign?
Well, having experienced hurricanes during the election season as it is, there's always a little noise from the opposition party, but this is going beyond noise, that the opposition party could do it better, quicker, and more efficient. But this is going beyond noise. We've always dealt with rumors. In Katrina, we had rumors of the breaking levees in one area to flood the poor areas. We had to immediately put that. That was rumors. We also had a rumor of snipers. We had to put that down. And the opposition party jumped on that. That being said, it's gone from rumors now to information, affirmation, and disinformation. And we've got some major channels that are amplifying that by bringing on even local congressmen who are amplifying that they don't have what they need FEMA to do the job. And that's been clearly stated and refuted by Republican governors as well as congressional people in North Carolina. So we got to stop listening to what people say and watch what we do. And I think the administration got a good handle on this, working with the governor in North Carolina and the one in Florida. And we need to just let the people see what the troops are doing. And the people that they're yelling at, they can't even hear because they don't have electricity. But it has an impact on the country, because the country needs to have confidence that the government is doing all it can to save people's lives and to try to get them to a recovery state.
Are you confident that FEMA has the resources it needs right now?
Absolutely. For the response phase. Response is keeping people alive, finding temporary shelter, giving them the immediate cash payment. They probably don't have the money for the recovery. Now, the recovery cover, getting people back in their homes. Recover could include providing trailers. Recovery could include public buildings being rebuilt, everything from schools to parks. They don't have that money. That normally comes through a supplemental. FEMA never have enough money for a major hurricane. And these could be two $90 billion hurricanes. They do never have enough money to do the recovery. Recovery is different than response. And right now we're in the response phase. And that's total disinformation to say FEMA don't have the money to do what they need to do right now. But Congress need to consider getting that supplemental done, because it won't be long before recovery tasks may be delayed because they don't have enough money in the FEMA budget.
Lieutenant General Russell Honore, thank you so much for your time today.
Have a good day, and let's support the volunteers. They're doing great work down there working with the uniformed first responders. Very proud of our military and National Guard.
And if you are impacted by Hurricane Milton and in the help of any resources, look on your screen there. Be sure to call the FEMA hotline at 1-800-621-3362, or you can download the FEMA app. Coming up, the United Nations says that Israel deliberately fired at 2 of its peacekeepers in Lebanon. What we know about this claim and how Israel is responding. That's after the break.
Watching America's #1 streaming news. Live reporting, breaking new exclusives. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Trick or treat!
When I flick this switch, there'll be a horrible noise and a terrible odor.
Will it hurt?
Pain like you've never known.
Seems risky. I am much satisfied.
What? You scared? This is happiness.
We love Halloween.
Got me. He's a bit silly.
Turning the machine off! Do you feel good?
Hulu is on Disney Plus.
It's right there.
There it is. Just push the green button
Is this the best idea we've ever had?
and see just how much there is to discover.
You know this is happening.
Voila!
Hulu on Disney Plus.
This ship is heaven. There should be no guilt on a pleasure cruise. Doctor, it's your job to keep everybody alive.
No pulse. She's in VPIP. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
Hey friends, excuse me miss, does anyone have a Walt Disney World moment?
Me? Yeah, let me find it. Our son, we adopted him. That Mickey Mouse was the first gift that we had ever given him. We went on the Jungle Cruise. He ended up dropping the Mickey Mouse into the water. The cast members stopped the ride to get that Mickey Mouse. They said no kid should go a day in the Magic Kingdom without their stuffed Mickey or Minnie. Seeing your kid experience Disney for the first time, it makes you feel like a kid all over again. It's amazing.
Oh my God, it's Bob Dylan.
How does it feel? Have you on your own? Like a complete unknown.
This film is not yet rated.
Yo, partner.
We're not partners. I'm the detective and you are the consultant. I see you brought your baby to a crime scene.
She is just spectating.
You're a single mom with 3 kids pretending to be a cop.
I am not pretending. I spot things that detectives miss. Still think my theory's flimsy?
That big brain of hers is going to help us close out a lot of cases.
Out here super copping.
High Potential, all new Tuesday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Thanks so much for streaming with us. The United Nations says that Israeli soldiers deliberately fired at 2 United Nations peacekeepers in southern Lebanon. Also today, Israeli forces hit a school sheltering displaced civilians in central Gaza. A local hospital saying at least 27 people were killed. Israel says it was a precise strike targeting a Hamas command center. Our Patrick Reeville joins us now from Beirut. Patrick, let's start in Lebanon. What can you tell us about this claim from the UN about its peacekeepers getting fired at? And have we heard anything from Israel in response to this?
Hi, Elizabeth. Yeah, the UN peacekeeping force based in southern Lebanon, known as UNIFIL, has accused the IDF of firing on 3 of its bases and injuring 2 of its peacekeepers. It says that an IDF tank fired at a observation tower at the peacekeepers' headquarters, and that directly hit the tower and knocked 2 of the peacekeepers from it. It says that they were hospitalized, but fortunately not seriously wounded. They also have accused the IDF of firing onto 2 bases that are manned by Italian troops, saying that the IDF soldiers fired onto the entrance of a base of a bunker, that was being used by peacekeepers to shelter. And they also say that IDF troops in recent days have deliberately shot out cameras around some of these peacekeeping posts. The peacekeeping organization UNIFIL have said that any attack on its peacekeepers would be a grave violation of international law and also violate the resolution, the UN resolution that mandates them to be in southern Lebanon. We've also seen already Italy summon the Israeli ambassador demanding an explanation over it, and France has also said that it strongly condemns any attack on the security of peacekeepers and that it is deeply concerned about these attacks, and has also demanded that Israel provide an explanation. Israel, so far, we've asked for a comment from the IDF. They so far haven't provided one to us. They have told other media that they're looking into it, but so far that is all that we have heard from them, Elizabeth.
Expect some sort of reaction or explanation from Israel. In the meantime, Patrick, Israel's fighting, of course, on multiple fronts right now. What can you tell us about that strike today in central Gaza?
Yeah, earlier today there was a strike on a school that has been turned into a shelter. And according to the Palestinian Red Crescent, at least 28 people were killed, dozens of people were wounded. The IDF have said that they were striking terrorists who had a command center inside the school compound, and they claim that they took numerous steps to warn civilians. The strike, though, the footage from the area shows children being pulled from the strike site, many of them covered in blood, taken in ambulances to hospitals. There are clearly large numbers of civilians living in that shelter, and we've seen this, of course, in many other cases where shelters where there are large numbers of people have been hit and serious casualties have been caused. Also, this is taking place as the IDF is waging a new ground offensive into northern Gaza, where the UN says that 400,000 people are trapped. We've heard today also from international aid agencies saying that since this renewed offensive, the humanitarian catastrophe there has dramatically escalated, and it's preventing them from doing what was already extremely limited life-saving work. They're calling on Israel to respect and protect the lives and security of civilians, Elizabeth.
Catastrophic, as you say. Patrick Reevell in Beirut for us. Thank you very much, Patrick. There is a lot more news right after this, so don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Evil has always existed.
To understand this killer, you must reach the ecstatic.
FX's Grotesquerie, all new Wednesdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
When my hair started to thin, I thought, am I going to have any hair left?
After I gave birth, my hair wasn't even thinning, it was gone.
When I spoke to my dermatologist, he immediately pointed me in the direction of Nutrafol.
It's 100% drug-free and clinically tested.
Within 3 months, my hair was fuller.
It's longer, it's so much thicker.
I had more scalp coverage.
It was so nice to be noticed for my hair after hiding it for so many years.
Start your hair growth journey at Nutrafol.com.
More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Oh my God, it's Bob Dylan. How does it feel? Have you on your own? Like a complete unknown.
This film is not yet rated.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Hulu is on Disney Plus.
It's right there.
There it is. Just push the green button
Is this the best idea we've ever had?
and see just how much there is to discover.
You know this is happening.
Hulu on Disney Plus.
Eso es Betty.
Ah, where are you?
At the doctor.
I'm Mexican. Proud of it.
Here.
Thanks.
Pretty solid solution.
I like it. Oh, I'm gonna get us a snack.
If you're shopping for a home, you could browse hundreds of listings, or you could compare home details all at once. Home values to find that hidden bargain. Lot sizes for more room to play. Year built for that mid-century original. And market hotness to buy in the hot neighborhood before it's a hot neighborhood. Search in full color and find the home that has it all. Home search will never be the same again.
It's better to look at the evil than to ignore it, Father.
And what if you enjoy the looking?
In my quiver just thinking about it.
FX's Grotesquerie. All new Wednesdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
I'm Janae Norman in Wulong, China, with Bao Li, the giant panda heading to the U.S. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're watching ABC News Live.
Welcome back. We do have some sad news today. Ethel Kennedy, the widow of Robert F. Kennedy, has died after suffering a stroke last week. Kennedy founded a human rights center in her husband's name and received the Medal of Freedom in 2014. Her grandson, former Congressman Joe Kennedy III, announced the news on social media. He says she was a devout Catholic and a daily communicant, and we are comforted in knowing she is reunited with the love of her life, our father, Robert F. Kennedy. Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl has more on her life and legacy.
Ethel Kennedy's life was marked by a tireless dedication to service, resilience, and tragedy. She was part of America's most powerful political dynasty. Ethel forged a relentless path on her own as a human rights advocate, fighting against poverty with leaders like Coretta Scott King, and championing the work of those standing up for human rights around the world. She was born Ethel Skakel in 1928 in Chicago, Illinois, the daughter of a former railroad clerk who gained his fortune building his own company. As a student at Manhattanville College in New York, she shared a room with Gene Kennedy. Ethel was 17 years old when she met Gene's brother Robert on a skiing vacation.
He was standing in front of an open fireplace, and I just turned around. I walked in the door and turned and saw him. And thought, whoa.
Ethel and Robert married in a lavish ceremony 5 years later. They eventually settled in a Washington, D.C. suburb and started a family, Ethel giving birth to their first of 11 children a year after they were married. She was intent on instilling a sense of service in her children from a young age.
When other mothers were taking their children to the playground to make castles in the sandbox, to ride on the seesaw, to climb the jungle gym, my mother brought my brothers and I to the Senate Racket Committee hearings.
Her first foray into politics came when Gene brought her to Boston to work on her brother John F. Kennedy's 1946 House campaign. She loved the experience, and after she became a member of the family, she hosted events for John Kennedy's 1952 Senate race and his 1960 race for the White House. In 1961, she stepped further into the national spotlight when her husband Robert became the Attorney General in his brother's administration. But in 1963, life came to a devastating halt when President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. Robert Kennedy would eventually resign as Attorney General in 1964 to run for Senate from New York.
I just want to thank each and every one of you for making this such a happy night for Bobby.
4 years after his successful Senate bid, Robert ran for president on a platform of social justice.
Thank you very much.
They hit the campaign trail again. Ethel once again at his side as they racked up primary victories.
My wife, Ethel, who's, as all of you know, has made such a major difference in this campaign and a major difference for me.
Creating throngs of supporters across the country. She was there at the Ambassador Hotel celebrating his primary win in California the night he was killed.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you.
Shot just moments after giving his victory speech. After his death, she retreated from the public eye to devote time to her family. Her youngest child, Rory, born 6 months after her father's death. Ethel was a devout Catholic and looked to her faith in heartbreak, including the death of her parents in a plane crash in 1955 and her brother in another crash 11 years later. Then in 1984 came the loss of her son David from an overdose, and again in 1997 when her son Michael died in a skiing accident. She also outlived 2 of her grandchildren and a great-grandson. Ethel turned personal tragedy into action, dedicating her life to carrying on the work her husband started. She established the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights, a nonprofit promoting social activism and other causes championed by her late husband.
Ethel, the light of his life, who stood with him on countless platforms and around the nation and around the world.
And she continued to fight for human rights issues on her own, marching arm in arm with the United Farm Workers in 1970 and sitting in support of Cesar Chavez, advocating for the poor and disadvantaged, and standing with civil rights leaders. At the age of 86, she took part in the Ice Bucket Challenge with her family to raise money for ALS research and challenging then-President Obama to do the same.
President Obama, I nominate you.
She sought no accolades for her work, instead focusing on highlighting the accomplishments of others. But President Obama honored Ethel Kennedy in 2014 with a Presidential Medal of Freedom for her lifetime commitment to service and justice.
She has touched the lives of countless people around the world with her generosity and her grace.
John Carl, thank you. Ethel Kennedy was 96 years old.
Your business requires trust. Prove trust without the fuss with Vanta AI. Tired of answering security questionnaires? Automate them with Vanta. Vanta AI learns from your documents and past responses to generate instant and accurate answers for you to approve. With Vanta AI, you can complete security questionnaires up to 5 times faster, which means shorter deal cycles and more time back in your day. That's how you automate compliance and prove trust with Vanta.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news, ABC News Live. More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Attention teachers, no child is to be sent to the principal's office today. Kids, if you want to do prom, now's the time. Happy birthday in school.
Yes. Weren't there like 4 more of these?
Yeah, we were robbed.
Hey, buy 3, get 1 free.
I'ma call your mother on you. Bring the rest back here, boy.
Aye, it was a grand adventure. Vibrant music. Grim grinning ghosts.
Charlie, let's go.
Unbelievable awaits on the all-new Disney Treasure.
Streaming live October 19th. It's a Disney Plus celebration.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Music's highest honor goes to Cher, Mary J. Blige, Ozzy Osbourne, Dave Matthews Band, Peter Frampton, Kool and the Gang, Jimmy Buffett, Dionne Warwick, A Tribe Called Quest, and Foreigner. Plus, performances by Dua Lipa, Kelly Clarkson, Jelly Roll, and more.
Outrageous!
The 2024 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Streaming live October 19th on Disney Plus.
Right now on ABC News Live, millions still without power after Hurricane Milton tore across Florida. We are live on the ground with where things stand right now. Plus, a major hearing today could decide the future of the DACA program, and with it, the futures of thousands of dreamers. We've got the latest. And Sean Diddy Combs will officially stand trial starting May 5th of next year. The latest from his court appearance today, coming up. Hey everyone, I'm Elizabeth Schulze. Our top story this hour is the rescue and recovery operation underway across the west coast of Central Florida after Hurricane Milton plowed through the state with Category 3 winds and life-threatening storm surge. At least 10 people are dead, a number that is expected to rise after Milton made landfall near Siesta Key, just south of Tampa, bringing along extreme winds, flash flooding, and at least 38 reported tornadoes. The predicted storm surge of up to 13 feet now inundating some of the most densely populated areas on the coast, including Fort Myers. More than 18 inches of rain also recorded in Pinellas County. Strong winds causing the roof of Tropicana Field, home of the Tampa Bay Rays. You can see it there flying off, exposing the inside of the dome. Take a look at this. A massive crane collapsed onto a building in St. Petersburg, an enormous piece of it lying across the road. Here's what one St. Petersburg resident told our Jacqueline Lee about what she endured as she rode out this monster storm.
It was horrifying. I live on the 8th floor of the apartment building here next to the trop. The sounded like waves hitting our windows. I got rain up to practically my knees in my apartment. It just sounded like the ocean was hitting the windows and the water was just pouring through.
Let's get right to Jacqueline Lee on the ground in St. Petersburg there. Jacqueline, we can see this Tropicana field behind you, the roof almost completely gone. What's the latest on the damage that you're seeing around you right now?
Oh, absolutely, Elizabeth. So obviously the roof is the biggest part, and this is what has caught a lot of people's attention. You know, it's made of 6 acres of fiberglass that was built to withstand wind gusts of up to 115 miles an hour. And our meteorologists confirmed that St. Petersburg received wind gusts of up to 101 miles an hour. But obviously, Hurricane Milton packing a huge punch, still ripping off the roof. It's really just, hanging out there. I mean, it's gone. You know, around the field, we've seen a lot of tree branches. We were initially in downtown Tampa last night. The bridges were all closed, but this morning they did open up, which is how we were able to get over here. And on the way, I mean, we saw down trees on roads. We saw buildings that were missing some pieces of brick for the construction that was being done. The scaffolding had collapsed. So it's really all over the place. We do know that there are hundreds and hundreds of first responders and crews that are really just trying to get everything back to normal here. Elizabeth.
Jacqueline, we know there's no running water in Pinellas County where you are. What are officials saying about a timeline to restore that?
So we do know that they're working on it. So the reason why this happened is because Hurricane Milton was so powerful that it resulted in quite a few water main breaks. So we know that they had to evacuate one of the hospitals. They didn't specify which one, but they did stabilize some of the water pressure in 4 of the 5 hospitals that they were concerned about, those hospital systems. So that's good. But unfortunately for residents here, not only are they dealing with no water, but they also don't have power. Here in Pinellas County, there's more than 400,000 residents without power. And officials did address that this morning, saying they're working as quickly as possible just to get both the power and the water back on. Elizabeth.
Jacqueline Lee reporting on this all day for us in St. Petersburg. Thanks so much, Jacqueline. Let's bring in WABC meteorologist Danny Beckstrom for the latest on Milton's path. Danny, we're still seeing Milton go. Yes. Give us a picture of the strength and track right now at this hour.
Yeah, Elizabeth, still some impacts to the northeast coast of Florida, but Milton now post-tropical, still with hurricane force wind right around 75 miles per hour in terms of max sustained, but will continue to weaken as it heads out into the open Atlantic. So conditions for Florida should begin to improve. It's actually really interesting to see that video you just saw with Jacqueline's story where it's the blue sky, but still so much floodwater, right? When you have that kind of rain for hours and hours, it's going to take a while for these rivers to actually recede. So river flooding is ongoing, although for the bulk of the peninsula, the rain has stopped. Where that is not the case is over here near the Space Coast, the outer rain band still impacting that area. But those rain bands settle down as the wind begins to settle down, all thanks to Milton moving on. Something else to mention, Milton did weaken as it approached landfall, but the hurricane force wind field actually expanded. So that's why we have to see Milton a couple hundred miles away from Florida to see the tropical storm force wind start to back off. That should happen as we head into tonight. Milton did weaken from a Category 5 to Category 3 as it approached landfall, but again, hurricane force wind field expanding. It made landfall near Siesta Key as a major still Category 3 hurricane. The rainfall totals, the wind gusts were just absolutely incredible to see. St. Pete, 101, that's where Trop Field is. 102 mile per hour wind gusts for Sarasota. 18.5 inches of rain fell for St. Pete. A lot of this area actually stayed in the northern eye wall, which is why we saw those rainfall totals just stack up and stack up for hours. Another part of this, the record tornado warnings. You touched on this a little bit, Elizabeth. We saw at least 126 tornado warnings for Florida, which was a state record for a single day. Something else to note, a lot of people on the West Coast actually evacuated to the East Coast, right? They weren't expecting a significant storm surge or flooding, but that's where we saw the bulk of these tornado warnings, which meant that even the other side of the state wasn't necessarily safe. We have at least 38 tornado reports. The National Weather Service will head out to work on confirmations. This is now the third landfalling hurricane for Florida this season. That ties the record for the most Florida landfalling hurricanes in a particular season. We're also looking at a really active Gulf season in general. We have 5, which ties for second most landfalling in one season in terms of the Gulf. And something else to mention, 2 of the 3 for Florida were major hurricanes. That's category 3 or stronger. You have to go back to 2005 to see a season where more than one made landfall in Florida in the same season. Elizabeth, back to you.
And you can see this coming just on the heels of Hurricane Helene. Danny Beckstrom, thanks so much for being with us all day here on ABC News Live. Danny Beckstrom. We have heard countless stories of people riding out the storm at home, and our next guest did just that. Brian Carter lives in the first house outside of the evacuation zone in Seminole, Florida, which is in the Tampa Bay area, and he joins us now to share his experience during Hurricane Milton. Brian, talk to us about what it was like when you heard Milton roar through. What did you see? What did you hear?
Well, I did an interview with you guys last night, and right after I got off that interview, I lost power, and it just diminished quickly. For about 3 hours, it just deteriorated. I heard nothing but howling. I heard my house vibrate, heard things hitting my house, really until about 1 a.m. And that's when it started to get better, and I felt like I could comfortably let my animals out of the kennel and, be in an area in all areas of my home. I was kind of sheltered in one area away from trees and windows. So it was a very, very nerve-wracking few hours there. I heard some winds that I never thought I would hear, and I looked out my little peepholes I had in my boards and saw just horizontal rain at one point. And after I lost the power, all I saw was transformers popping and blue things in the sky all night long, and that was a little eerie.
What kind of damage are you seeing around you, Brian? What does it look like there around your home and your neighborhood?
Well, I live right on the border of Madeira Beach and Seminole, just north of the Tropicana Field, about 7 miles. I drove around this morning. I have a theater here in Seminole. Went to go check on that. We were sheltered in place for a while because they had power lines down throughout Pinellas County, and we had to shelter in place. Once they lifted that, went out and checked on my store. There is oak trees down on houses that are just uprooted. The most interesting thing, we knew that with all the rain, but the most interesting thing was there's just oak trees snapped, and those are the strongest trees. So the winds were very strong. Street lights are down, stop signs are down. It made driving a little tricky this morning, making sure everyone came to a 4-way stop. There's flooding in low-lying areas, 18 inches of rain, and I did drive through Madeira Beach on my way home, as that was very affected by Helene, and there was just lots of shrapnel left out there. So I was curious on how my friends fared over there after helping them recover 2 weeks ago, and it's just scattered everywhere. So it's really just sad to see. But we're Florida. We'll pick back up. We'll build back stronger. We'll help our neighbors. That's what I've been doing this morning, is taking my boards off. It's been a nice day here, actually, since the storm passed. It's been about 7 degrees and breezy. So the windows are open, generators are on throughout the neighborhood. People are helping each other, which is good to see.
And Brian, we understand your wife works for Pinellas County, was working in one of the local shelters. Can you share anything about her experience during this storm?
She was just there and being a service to our community. There was lots of people that came in, some that, more than expected at the shelter she was at. They took in pets. So it was very, a nerve-wracking night for her as well, just making sure everyone was calm and comfortable. She's safe. She'll probably have to be there until Monday from what she's hearing right now, just because of all the people that do not have power in our area. And just some of the water issues that we're having, it's more safe for them to be there and not at home. So I may not see her till Monday. It is her birthday today, so happy birthday again. I love you. But we're doing what we need to do to help our neighbors get back up and pick up our community.
Brian Carter, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate you.
And if you are impacted by Hurricane Milton and in need of any help or resources, be sure to call the FEMA hotline. That's 1-800-621-3362, or you can download the FEMA app. Now to some other news. A trial date is set in the sex abuse case against Sean Diddy Combs. That date is May 5th of 2025. The music mogul appeared in court today where his lawyers pushed for him to be released on bail and challenged accusations of alleged witness tampering. We also learned today that federal authorities seized 100 electronic devices from his residences during raids last month. Combs is accused of leading a criminal enterprise that sexually abused and exploited women. He has denied those allegations. Let's bring in ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky, who was there in the courtroom today, and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. So, Aaron, walk us through what happened in court there and really what's at stake here for Sean Combs.
Sean Combs came into court wearing a beige, kind of ill-fitting smock and pants. He was not handcuffed, Elizabeth, but he was shackled at the ankles, and he looked a lot less bloated than he looked when we saw him appear in court shortly after his arrest. The judge did set that trial date of May 5th. It was a request from the defense to get a trial started as soon as possible. So the government conceded May 5th is when Combs is going to stand trial. Prosecutors said that trial should last about a month, but they did say it is an ongoing investigation. They did raise the possibility of a superseding indictment, so additional charges could affect the length of the trial. And Elizabeth, about those devices, about 100 devices seized in raids of Diddy's homes last March, and then after his arrest in September, they're still going through the 100 electronic devices. They're having some trouble getting into all of them, but it gives you a sense of just how much evidence prosecutors already have as they begin to dig into this case.
No question, just a massive case. Brian, Combs' lawyers argued that their proposed bail package would plainly stop Combs from posing a danger to anyone or contacting any witnesses. How common is it for judges to withhold bail in situations like this one?
Well, it's a little difficult because there are not many situations like this one. There are not many music moguls like Sean Combs who are facing charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation for the purpose of prostitution. But to ask just a question generally about the federal criminal justice system, oftentimes people do get bail. But I think for part of the arguments here by the government, they're saying that he has so many resources and there have been so many allegations of witness tampering that there was no amount of package that could have secured his return back to court and also not to reoffend. But to your point, Sean Combs' team is making appeal to the Second Circuit, making what I think are some very strong arguments as to why he should potentially have bail, or more specifically, house arrest.
Aaron Katersky and Brian Buckmeyer, who've been tracking every detail of this case for us. Thank you both so much. Coming up, federal courts hear arguments in a consequential case that threatens the existence of a major program affecting young immigrants that are known as the Dreamers. Details when we come back.
Child, what are you doing?
Remember when I was applying for credit cards and it was impossible to tell if I'd be approved? So I bought all these crystals from you for good luck.
Oh, but of course.
Well, now that I shop for cards with Credit Karma, I don't need luck. If a card has the Karma guarantee, they'll give me $50 if I don't get approved.
You know our store policy. No refunds during Mercury retrograde.
Ugh, fine. Get approved or get $50 on offers with the Karma guarantee.
We love Halloween.
What? You scared?
I am much satisfied. Got me.
I didn't have to spend my life trying to find my calling. Mine found me at an early age.
At Ram, our calling is to build trucks. So when you find your calling, nothing can stop you from answering it.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
I do have a Walt Disney World moment. Oh, there she is. There's Tiana. I went to the new Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and I cried the whole time. It was so special as a woman of color. It just felt like I was home. She's so beautiful.
Attention teachers, no child is to be sent to the principal's office today. Kids, if you want to do prom, now's the time. Happy first day of school.
You're a single mom pretending to be a cop.
I am not pretending. I spot things that detectives miss. I'm just out here super copping.
Welcome back. Today, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans heard arguments in a consequential case that threatens the existence of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as DACA program. Lawyers representing the Justice Department, the state of New Jersey, and the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Education Fund defended the program against a lawsuit launched by a coalition of Republican states trying to end it. ABC News' Maria Villarreal joins me now to discuss more. Maria, this program was launched by President Obama back in 2012. It's faced multiple legal challenges over the years. So what were these arguments made today by Republican states in court?
You know, I think a bulk of what we heard today was basically Republican-led states saying, listen, these DACA recipients, over 500,000 right now that are active in our country, they are a drain on our communities and our resources. And then on top of that, they also said it was a far reach for the president at the time, President Obama, to put this program in place, that he didn't have authority to do so. So those are the two main arguments that these Republican-led states and really Texas have been saying over the last few years that the lawsuit has been going on, Elizabeth.
Can you give us a little bit of a reality check here, Maria, on what specific requirements do recipients of DACA have to fulfill to be eligible for this program? How many people right now are using this program?
So like I just mentioned, at some point, right, the White House was saying that they had upwards of 800,000 DACA recipients that were in the program. Now we're looking at roughly over 500,000, so a little over 500,000 that are actually active here in the U.S. And in order to be a part of this program, you have to check in every 2 years with specific federal agencies. You have to make sure that you pay all your fees. You have to go through an extensive background check. And then that's on top of actually making sure that you're explaining to them exactly what you're doing in our country, right? And for that, I mean, like, are you going to school? Are you working? So on top of all of these checks and balances they have in place for these DACA recipients, and on top of that, they are also contributing to our local economies. And really, they're giving back billions of dollars every year in federal, state, and local taxes.
Right. And do we think that the fate of this program that has been around now for so many years could ultimately be decided by the Supreme Court? Where does this go from here, Maria?
You know, I think that's a big fear for all of those people out there that are DACA recipients, the dreamers, right? We hear a lot about them. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of states that are supporting DACA, having it around, talking about the contributions of these immigrant children. Many of them were brought here when they were 5, 6, 7 years old. And if you can believe it, they have been here for most of their life, right? And so now some of these migrant children are well into their 20s. The idea that they'd be able to be sent back to another country that they know nothing about is really creating a lot of fear with the people in this program. Listen, this could be potentially the last time this case is heard. However, I think both sides have made it very clear, depending on what the ruling is out of the Fifth Circuit, they are going to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, but there is no guarantee that SCOTUS will take up this case. So again, I think people are trying to watch this very carefully, and there is a lot of concern about what could happen in the Fifth Circuit. Elizabeth?
Right, of course. The big question of if the Supreme Court would even want to weigh in or decide to weigh in. Maria Villarreal, thank you so much for your perspective on this. We do have some breaking news now. We're going to take you to Sarasota, Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis is delivering remarks on the response to Hurricane Milton. Let's listen in.
Continuing to work throughout the day. We've got a lot of rescue craft operational. Hundreds of rescuers are engaged in over 125 missions in 26 counties. Some of that's in conjunction with the local law enforcement and fire and other first responders. I know a lot of the sheriffs are doing a lot of good work. You know, this storm came in the way it did. The dirty side of the storm was kind of Sarasota, Charlotte area. And then the northern side of the storm, it actually, instead of doing storm surge into Tampa Bay, it sucked it out. But the northern side of the storm had a lot of precipitation. I mean, they were just getting water dumped on them. So whereas Helene created a lot of storm surge in that part of the state, this one didn't do that there, but it created like inland flooding. And you're going to you see that in Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. You also got an awful lot of water dumped in the center and northern parts of the state on the northern side of the storm. So we're going to continue to respond for those as appropriate. Power. So as of the 3 p.m. update, we've got 3.2 million that are without power, 3.2 million accounts throughout the state of Florida. Since the storm hit, 880,000 have been restored. So we've basically had a storm that's had over 4 million power outages. I think that's probably similar to what we saw with Hurricanes Irma and Hurricanes Ian. And I know but on this one, we have 50,000 linemen. We had probably 40-some thousand for Ian. I don't think they had them pre-staged for Irma, but we've got over 50,000 linemen. So they are hard at work. I know this area is FPL. I know they're planning a big push. So we feel very confident that those folks are working very hard, and you're going to see some good stuff here in the ensuing time period. Sarasota County, where we are now, is about 66% out as we speak. Prior to landfall here in Sarasota, we staged thousands of sandbags, 9 high-water vehicles, 3 high-wheeled vehicles for search and rescue, 12 emergency sat phones, 4 urban search and rescue teams, and 2 swiftwater teams. And now we are continuing to help with 25 additional generators, 3 swamp buggies, FWC search and rescue boats, 3 mobile command vehicles, 4 ambulance strike teams, 4,000 gallons of diesel, 4,000 gallons of regular unleaded, 5 helicopters, additional Starlinks, 20 diesel trash pumps, and additional supplies like tarps, fans, and dehumidifiers. Cut and toss began at first light by the Florida Department of Transportation. We have 328 crews active in the field, over 350 pieces of heavy equipment, 150 bridge inspectors were dispatched immediately, and over 620 bridges have already been inspected. As I said in my executive order,
we've been listening to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on the state's efforts to restore power to, he says, 4 million homes without power right now across the state in the wake of Hurricane Milton. An effort across the state underway, 50,000 linemen trying to restore power. He says local state officials are hard at work to help those affected by the storm. Let's listen back in now to what Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is saying about the recovery efforts.
Other parts of the state where they are looking at different issues. I-4, I-75, Alligator Alley are all clear and they're all open. US 1 and A1A have been cleared with the exception of A1A at Menendez Avenue in Butler Beach. That's over on the other coast. Assessing a few areas where damage has occurred along roadways and bridges, such as washouts and flooding. That is continuing to go. There have been 5,000 traffic signals. 280 signals in the state are not currently operational. They're working to deploy generators to get those back up. If you come to a traffic light that is out, you treat it like a 4-way stop. So just remember, that's how people are going to do. So if you're going, you got to stop, look like you would on a stop sign. There are many schools closed today, but we're working with the Department of Education as schools resume as quickly as possible across the state, and that's going to be a little bit different depending on how you were affected by the storm. But I think the majority of those school districts that were closed probably had minimal to no impacts from the storm and should be able to resume operations very quickly. If you want to look to see what your school district's plans are, you can go to fldoe.org/storm info. Now, please remember, as you survey damage and you clean up, be cautious of any down power lines. They can be deadly. Do not touch them and stay away from any debris that may be tangled within the power lines. Be careful of standing water. You know, we see even in Siesta Key, I was able to soothe. I mean, there's some. It's gone down, but there is some. There's going to be some inland flooding. Just be very careful when you're talking about standing water. There could be power lines down in there. There could be other hazards, and that could cause major problems. Be careful when you use ladders. We always have injuries and sometimes even fatalities based on the use of ladders. We've got a lot of elderly residents. We have different groups that will be in Florida that will help you with some of these things. These charity groups, church groups, they go in to help people with their homes and help clean up debris. So utilize that. Don't put yourself at risk. If you operate a generator, do not operate your generator inside your home. It must be operated outside your home. We still have Visit Florida's emergency accommodation modules on Expedia and Priceline available if people need temporary shelter. For another 2 weeks, we have extended the Hope Florida line. So that's going to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you need help or you need some resources, like maybe helping hand with some things around your house or maybe some things with some supplies, you know, we've got all these organizations that come to help in the subsequent to these storms. They're all plugged into Hope Florida. So you can call 1-833-GET-HOPE, 1-833-GET-HOPE, and Activate Hope is the disaster arm for Hope Florida, and that is up and running. We also have small business loans available. So we have $50 million. It's interest-free, very forgiving payment options. So if you need cash as a business, you can apply for up to $50,000. If you're agriculture and aquaculture, you have up to $100,000, and if you're citrus and cattle, you have up to $150,000. So please take advantage if you want. If you want to apply for that, you go to floridajobs.org/EBL. We also are accepting donations for the Florida Disaster Fund. This is a charitable, tax-deductible donation. 100% of the proceeds go to helping victims of both Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. And so if you want to do that, you can go to floridadisasterfund.org, floridadisasterfund.org. I want to thank everybody who's worked really hard. We're still assessing the damage from this storm. I mean, I think clearly just going around that there was damage from it. I think in some areas, in terms of what was being predicted, some of the worst case scenarios did not come to pass, certainly in terms of some of the storm surge. People were predicting perhaps in the Tampa Bay area. The storm did weaken as it made landfall. And so whereas it was churning ferociously off the Yucatan Peninsula, by the time it made it to the coast of Florida, those winds were a little bit tamer. Still enough to do a lot of damage, but in terms of our assessments and being able to bounce back, you know, I feel confident we're going to do that as a state. This power restoration effort is underway by all the major utilities. They've had the people ready, and they know that this is something that's really important. So you've got a lot of people working on that. We're very confident on reopening the ports like Tampa to make sure that fuel is continuing to flow. We have a lot of fuel in reserve in the state if we need to fill any gaps. But I'm confident we're going to be able to have an adequate amount of fuel delivered to the gas stations one way or another. If we need to use Florida Highway Patrol to help rush the trucks there, then we'll do that. But we should be in pretty good shape as far as that goes. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved. And we'll be putting out information about things like points of distribution for food and water. We're taking some of those inputs from some of the counties. I mean, some people said before the storm they wanted pods. You know, maybe they don't need pods now, depending on what damage. But we do anticipate when the counties are ready, rolling out some of the pods and providing some of the resources in terms of food, water, and other supplies like tarps for people as they may need it. So, okay, Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for everything you do for communities like these to make our job much easier and much more successful. Before I get started, you know, there's a lot of people here that I want to thank that are the partners of the State Emergency Response Team. And as I look around here from right to left, we got the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Florida Highway Patrol, the Florida National Guard, members of the federal and state USAR task forces that are in here, local sheriff's offices. These men and women, you know, went through the storm to get to you to be able to help you. And we certainly appreciate everything that they do. Even though Hurricane Milton has exited the east coast of Florida, storm surge is still expected along the east coast. Major flooding continues along Hillsborough, St. Johns, and the Little Wekiva rivers, and water levels are forecast to continue rising, not going down. They're forecast to continue rising through those areas. Residents in these areas should continue to shelter in place until officials deem it safe to go outside. Roadways are flooded, and the potential for hazardous conditions with them still exists. Please do not walk or drive through them under any circumstances. 6 inches of moving water can knock a person over, and 1 foot of moving water can sweep you away in your vehicle. Accidents due to floodwaters are preventable. All you got to do is just stay out of them. Right now, our teams are in the field working in parallel over the next 72 hours to do 3 things. That is to search, secure, and stabilize the areas from getting any worse. As these search and rescue missions continue to respond, as we continue to respond to Milton, please do not go out and visit impacted areas. You are inhibiting first responders by doing so. Listen to local authorities for updates on when it is safe. If you are sheltered in place or you're now returning home and you are outside, one of the first things you should do is document your damages. Make sure that you take a picture of all 4 sides of the outside of your home. When you go inside, make sure you take pictures in each and every room and have a point of reference like an electrical socket or a doorknob that gives us reference to know how high the water was.
We've been listening to an update from local officials in Sarasota, Florida, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis about the response to Hurricane Milton. DeSantis saying there is a full-on effort across the state to restore power to more than 3 million people who are still without power. 50,000 linemen, he says, now trying to get that power back. He urged Floridians to be cautious of downed power lines, said to continue to heed their warnings with debris on the roads. But he did say the worst-case scenarios did not come to pass, thanks to those winds from the storm dying down at the moment that it made landfall, and the storm surge weakening to not reach some of those projections about how high it could have been. Still urging all people in the state to take caution as they try to dig their way out, and urging all residents to take advantage of the state and local recovery efforts. Of course, the aftermath of the storm does remain our top story right now. We're going to continue to follow Hurricane Milton and the rescue and recovery operations that are underway across the west coast of Central Florida. After Hurricane Milton plowed through the state. It was a Category 3 winds and life-threatening storm surge. The death toll now up to 10, but that is a number that's expected to rise after Milton made landfall near Siesta Key, that is just south of Tampa. It brought along extreme winds, flash flooding, and at least 38 reported tornadoes. The predicted storm surge of up to 13 feet is still inundating some of the most densely populated areas on the coast, including Fort Myers. See more than 18 inches of rain also recorded in Pinellas County. The police chief of Bradenton is feeling lucky, though. He says he is breathing a sigh of relief after his community was spared the worst of Milton.
So far, knock on wood, we've had no injuries and no deaths in our city. So, yeah, that is a great relief. This is a very tight-knit, small community. Almost everybody knows everybody. So any tragedy that could have happened from that, the whole community would have felt it.
Our Jacqueline Lee is on the ground in St. Petersburg and has been tracking this for us all day there. Jacqueline, what are you seeing around you in St. Petersburg? Give us a sense of the effort to recover some of the damage there.
Oh, that's right, Elizabeth. I mean, obviously a lot of damage here in Pinellas County. Over here, as we've shown you before, this is the roof of Tropicana Field. It was ripped off. It was made of fiberglass. All morning long, we have seen residents come out here trying to take photos of it. They wanted to see this destruction in person, and many of them told me they had no idea that it wasn't made of concrete. They didn't know it was made of fiberglass. That roof was meant to withstand wind gusts up to 115 miles an hour. Obviously, Hurricane Milton had no issue ripping that roof off, but I did also want to show you some of the other storm damage. Over here, you can see tree branches all over this parking lot. You know, last night we were in downtown Tampa, and when we were there, when Milton made landfall, you know, we had to hunker down. But of course, the power of those wind gusts pushed all of these trees around. When we were able to cross the bridge to get over here to Pinellas County, we were able to see a lot of even larger trees that were all down as a result of this storm. But over here, the other thing I wanted to show you is not only did this impact trees and impact roofs and infrastructure, but also this metal sheeting over here, which belonged as some sort of roofing structure for some sort of building or whatnot. You know, there's a lot of dangers also, as you know, Governor DeSantis pointed out, is you don't ever want to step out, especially when there's water and downed power. Obviously, power and water are a huge issue right now. Elizabeth.
Jacqueline, talk to us a little bit about that effort. We know that there is no running water in Pinellas County. What are you hearing about the efforts to restore that and the power to the more than 3 million people who are without power across the state?
Right. So to that point, I mean, Governor DeSantis said currently more than 3.3 million people are without power, but they actually restored power to more than 880,000 customers, which means Milton took out power to more than 4 million people here in Florida. That is a huge deal. Now, here in Pinellas County, we spoke with residents who don't have any running water, and the reason why is because Milton caused several water main breaks. We heard the executive director of the Division of Emergency Management here in Florida explain that there are crews working around the clock to figure out exactly where those water main breaks happen. They're trying to stabilize the pressure, the water pressure, and they did have to evacuate a hospital. So that just shows how dire the situation is, but they are working around the clock to fix it. Elizabeth.
So glad that you are safe and that so many of the residents you've talked to there are safe too. Jacqueline Lee, thank you. Let's bring in WABC meteorologist Danny Beckstrom for the latest on Milton's path right now. Hey, Danny, what do we know?
Elizabeth, Milton is now post-tropical, but still with hurricane force winds sustained at about 75 miles per hour. It should continue to weaken as it heads out to sea. So impacts will start to improve, but it's going to take a while for the floodwater to completely recede. It's the reason so many flood warnings continue for 4 rivers in Florida, even as the actual rain is starting to pull away. Both the rain bands and the wind will start to back off as Milton pulls away from the Space Coast here, but it'll take until tonight to see tropical storm force winds relax, considering they extend about 310 miles away from the center of Milton. Things will continue to improve as we head into tonight, and by tomorrow, much calmer conditions expected for the peninsula, which means the cleanup can really begin. Category 5 to Category 3, that was the weakening we saw Milton undergo as it approached landfall. But as the wind speeds weakened, the wind field started to grow, which is why we saw such widespread impacts, making landfall last night at about 8 p.m. That's Wednesday night near Siesta Key as a major Category 3 hurricane. We certainly saw the triple-digit wind gusts for St. Pete, for Sarasota. Those areas seeing quite a bit of damage because of wind. But also you have to check out the rainfall totals. St. Pete, 18.5 inches, and Tampa now seeing the wettest year on record with a foot of rain falling in about 12 hours yesterday. Tornadoes were another big factor to this. At least 126 tornado warnings, which made it Florida's most active day in terms of tornado warnings. We saw at least 38 confirmed tornadoes. The National Weather Service continues to head out and track those confirmations. This now makes 3 landfalling hurricanes for Florida this season. That ties for most. And this also makes it the 3rd consecutive year that Florida has seen a major, which is a Category 3 or greater, landfall during the season. We saw 2 years ago Ida, last year Idalia, and now 2 major hurricanes making landfall in Florida in this year. Elizabeth?
And still so many of those communities digging out. Danny Beckstrom, thank you. Let's go now to our ABC News senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, who is in Pittsburgh for more. Selena, we heard President Biden give an update earlier today on the federal response to Hurricane Milton. He had some pretty harsh words for former President Trump, who we know has been spreading misinformation about FEMA's response. What do we hear from Biden today?
Yeah, Elizabeth. Well, President Biden, he slammed Donald Trump for what he called an onslaught of lies, and he told the former president to get a life. And yesterday at the White House, I asked President Biden why he thinks Trump is spreading this misinformation. And President Biden said he doesn't know, but he called it, quote, un-American. And look, we know that this misinformation has a real impact for people on the ground. The FEMA administrator has warned that it discourages people who need that critical aid from seeking that aid. And today we heard from the DHS secretary that FEMA officials are being harassed online with hate speech, and he said that this online doxing needs to stop.
Selena, we know that you are there in Pittsburgh, where former President Obama is hitting the trail now for Vice President Harris. Talk about what we expect to hear from him today and how significant his support is at this critical moment in the race.
Yeah, this is really the Harris campaign stepping up into high gear. They are taking out one of their biggest assets in this final stretch as early voting is already underway here in Pennsylvania. Former President Obama, he remains hugely hugely popular within the Democratic Party, and they're really hoping that his star power is going to give a boost here. And I'm told that this is all going to be about getting out the vote, of Obama inspiring people and really setting up the stakes of this election, because Democrats know that this is going to be a razor-thin race, and they want to use every asset they can in these final remaining weeks. But look, I've been talking to voters here on the ground in Pittsburgh, and voters here are really divided. Several voters told me that they haven't registered to vote and that they have no intention to vote. Those are the voters that the Harris campaign is desperately trying to reach. And many of these voters also tell me that there's really nothing at this point that is going to sway their point of view. So take a listen to what some of the voters told me today.
I'm going to vote Republican for now.
Have you made up your mind for sure?
Yes. I have a business, and I've been struggling heavily for the past 4 years. It's been awful.
I don't necessarily feel like at this point it's going to sway a person one way or another.
And sources also tell us that the Harris campaign has raised $1 billion since she entered the race. But the campaign is not touting that number because they want people to not get complacent and know that this is going to be a tight and tough race. Elizabeth.
And so important, every vote there in Pennsylvania matters, as we know, could come down to that state. Selena weighing in Pittsburgh for us. Thanks so much, Selena. Coming up, the United Nations says that Israel deliberately fired at 2 of its peacekeepers in Lebanon. What we know about the claim and how Israel is responding. That's after the break.
Amazon fall favorites are here. Save on fashion, home, beauty, and more. Shop Amazon fall favorites now.
It's better to look at the evil than to ignore it, Father.
And what if you enjoy the looking?
In my quiver just thinking about it.
FX's Grotesquerie. All new Wednesdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Trick or treat!
We love Halloween.
What? You scared?
I am much satisfied.
Got me.
This ship is heaven. There should be no guilt on a pleasure cruise. Doctor, it's your job to keep everybody alive.
No pulse. She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news, ABC News Live.
Aye, it was a grand adventure. Vibrant music. Grim grinning ghosts.
Charlie, let's go.
Unbelievable awaits on the all-new Disney Treasure.
Friday, the love triangle that ended in murder.
It was a mess, yes.
But that's not even the most shocking part of the story. Wow. 2020 on ABC.
Thanks so much for streaming with us. The United Nations says that Israeli soldiers deliberately fired at 2 United Nations peacekeepers in southern Lebanon. Also today, Israeli forces hit a school sheltering displaced civilians in central Gaza. A local hospital saying at least 27 people were killed. Israel says it was a precise strike targeting a Hamas command center. Our Patrick Revel joins us now from Beirut. Patrick, let's start in Lebanon. What can you tell us about this claim from the UN about its peacekeepers getting fired at? And have we heard anything from Israel in response to this?
Hi, Elizabeth. Yeah, the UN peacekeeping force based in southern Lebanon, known as UNIFIL, has accused the IDF of firing on 3 of its bases and injuring 2 of its peacekeepers. It says that an IDF tank fired at an observation tower at the peacekeepers' headquarters, and that directly hit the tower and knocked 2 of the peacekeepers from it. It says that they were hospitalized, but fortunately not seriously wounded. They also have accused the IDF of firing onto 2 bases that are manned by Italian troops, saying that the IDF soldiers fired onto the entrance of a base, of a bunker, that was being used by peacekeepers to shelter. And they also say that IDF troops in recent days have deliberately shot out cameras around some of these peacekeeping posts. The group, the peacekeeping organization UNIFIL, have said that any attack on its peacekeepers would be a grave violation of international law and also violate the resolution, the UN resolution that mandates them to be in southern Lebanon. We've also seen already Italy summon the Israeli ambassador demanding an explanation over it, and France has also said that it strongly condemns any attack on the security of peacekeepers and that it is deeply concerned about these attacks, and has also demanded that Israel provide an explanation. Israel, so far, we've asked for a comment from the IDF. They so far haven't provided one to us. They have told other media that they're looking into it, but so far that is all that we have heard from them, Elizabeth.
Expect some sort of reaction or explanation from Israel. In the meantime, Patrick, Israel's fighting, of course, on multiple fronts right now. What can you tell us about that strike today in central Gaza?
Yeah, earlier today there was a strike on a school that has been turned into a shelter. And according to the Palestinian Red Crescent, at least 28 people were killed, dozens of people were wounded. The IDF have said that they were striking terrorists who had a command center inside the school compound, and they claim that they took numerous steps to warn civilians. The strike, though, the footage from the area shows children being pulled from the strike site, many of them covered in blood, taken in ambulances to hospitals. There are clearly large numbers of civilians living in that shelter, and we've seen this, of course, in many other cases where shelters where there are large numbers of people have been hit and serious casualties have been caused. Also, this is taking place as the IDF is waging a new ground offensive into northern Gaza, where the UN says that 400,000 people are trapped. We've heard today also from international aid agencies saying that since this renewed offensive, the humanitarian catastrophe there has dramatically escalated, and it's preventing them from doing what was already extremely limited life-saving work. They're calling on Israel to respect and protect the lives and security of civilians, Elizabeth.
Catastrophic, as you say. Patrick Reevell in Beirut for us. Thank you very much, Patrick. There is a lot more news right after this, so don't go too far. We'll be right back.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news, ABC News Live. Breaking news, exclusives, live reporting. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
It's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony as music's highest honor goes to this year's inductees with performances by today's biggest stars. Outrageous! The 2024 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony streaming live October 19th on Disney+.
Hi, my name is Patrice. I am a totally cool person with a disability. Patrice always sees the best side of life. He just looked at her and I said, "Would you like to be my wife?"
If you get married and you're collecting a Social Security benefit, your benefit will be cut.
I don't take anything for granted.
I don't see what anyone can see in anyone.
They're never gonna stop us from loving each other.
Oh my God, that's Bob Dylan.
How does it feel? Have you on your own? Like a complete unknown.
This film is not yet rated. Hulu is on Disney+.
It's right there.
There it is. Just push the green button.
Is this the best idea we've ever had?
And see just how much there is to discover.
You know this is happening.
Hulu on Disney+.
It's a full moon outside. The weirdos are out.
Did you hear what she called you?
They're evil. They really hurt my feelings.
Hocus Pocus 1 and 2 on Freeform.
Hey friends, excuse me miss, does anyone have a Walt Disney World moment?
Yeah, let me find it. Our son, we adopted him,
That Mickey Mouse was the first gift that we had ever given him. We went on the Jungle Cruise. He ended up dropping the Mickey Mouse into the water. The cast members stopped the ride to get that Mickey Mouse. They said no kid should go a day in the Magic Kingdom without their stuffed Mickey or Minnie. Seeing your kid experience Disney for the first time, it makes you feel like a kid all over again. It's amazing.
FX's Grotesquerie, all new Wednesdays at 10 on FX, streaming on Hulu.
This ship is heaven. Doctor, it's your job to keep everybody alive. Clear. Come on.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Live reporting, breaking new exclusives. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Reporting from the 2024 Summer Games in Paris, I'm Maggie Rulli. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back. We do have some sad news today. Ethel Kennedy, the widow of Robert F. Kennedy, has died after suffering a stroke last week. Kennedy founded a human rights center in her husband's name and received the Medal of Freedom in 2014. Her grandson, former Congressman Joe Kennedy III, announced the news on social media. He says she was a devout Catholic and a daily communicant, and we are comforted in knowing she is reunited with the love of her life, our father, Robert F. Kennedy. Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl has more on her life and legacy.
Ethel Kennedy's life was marked by a tireless dedication to service, resilience, and tragedy. She was part of America's most powerful political dynasty. Ethel forged a relentless path on her own as a human rights advocate, fighting against poverty with leaders like Coretta Scott King, and championing the work of those standing up for human rights around the world. She was born Ethel Skakel in 1928 in Chicago, Illinois, the daughter of a former railroad clerk who gained his fortune building his own company. As a student at Manhattanville College in New York, she shared a room with Gene Kennedy. Ethel was 17 years old when she met Gene's brother Robert on a skiing vacation.
He was standing in front of an open fireplace, and I just turned around. I walked in the door and turned and saw him. I thought, whoa.
Ethel and Robert married in a lavish ceremony 5 years later. They eventually settled in a Washington, D.C. suburb and started a family, Ethel giving birth to their first of 11 children a year after they were married. She was intent on instilling a sense of service in her children from a young age.
When our mothers were taking their children to the playground to make castles in the sandbox, to ride on the seesaw, to climb the jungle gym, my mother brought my brothers and I to the Senate Racket Committee hearings.
Her first foray into politics came when Gene brought her to Boston to work on her brother John F. Kennedy's 1946 House campaign. She loved the experience, and after she became a member of the family, she hosted events for John Kennedy's 1952 Senate race and his 1960 race for the White House. In 1961, she stepped further into the national spotlight when her husband Robert became the Attorney General in his brother's administration. But in 1963, life came to a devastating halt when President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. Robert Kennedy would eventually resign as Attorney General in 1964 to run for Senate from New York.
I just want to thank each and every one of you for making this such a happy night for Bobby.
4 years after his successful Senate bid, Robert ran for president on a platform of social justice.
Thank you very much.
They hit the campaign trail again. Ethel once again at his side as they racked up primary victories.
My wife, Ethel, who's, as all of you know, has made such a major difference in this campaign and a major difference for me.
Creating throngs of supporters across the country. She was there at the Ambassador Hotel celebrating his primary win in California the night he was killed.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you.
Shot just moments after giving his victory speech. After his death, she retreated from the public eye to devote time to her family. Her youngest child, Rory, born 6 months after her father's death. Ethel was a devout Catholic and looked to her faith in heartbreak. including the death of her parents in a plane crash in 1955 and her brother in another crash 11 years later. Then in 1984 came the loss of her son David from an overdose. And again in 1997 when her son Michael died in a skiing accident. She also outlived two of her grandchildren and a great-grandson. Ethel turned personal tragedy into action, dedicating her life to carrying on the work her husband started. She established the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights, a nonprofit promoting social activism and other causes championed by her late husband.
To Ethel, the light of his life, who stood with him on countless platforms and around the nation and around the world.
And she continued to fight for human rights issues on her own, marching arm in arm with the United Farm Workers in 1970 and sitting in support of Cesar Chavez, advocating for the poor and disadvantaged, and standing with civil rights leaders. At the age of 86, she took part in the Ice Bucket Challenge with her family to raise money for ALS research and challenging then-President Obama to do the same.
President Obama, I nominate you.
She sought no accolades for her work, instead focusing on highlighting the accomplishments of others. President Obama honored Ethel Kennedy in 2014 with a Presidential Medal of Freedom for her lifetime commitment to service and justice.
She has touched the lives of countless people around the world with her generosity and her grace.
John Carl, thank you. Ethel Kennedy was 96 years old.
Since forever, we've hated Mondays. Monday. But it doesn't have to be like this. Introducing Monday Hair Care. Our modern, award-winning formulas. Smooth, hydrate, and protect against whatever life throws at you. No more bad Mondays. Monday Hair Care.
When your child has moderate to severe eczema, it's okay for them to show off. Show off their clearer skin and noticeably less itch with Dupixent. Because children 6 months and older with eczema have plenty of reasons to show off their skin. With Dupixent, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists, they can stay ahead of their eczema. It helps block a key source of inflammation inside the body that can cause eczema to help heal your child's skin from within. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems, such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. Show off to the world. Ask your child's eczema specialist about Dupixent.
Hey, what are those? Little Caesar's Crazy Puffs. Everyone's getting them.
Yeah, kiddo. Everyone but you.
Everyone but you.
Everyone but you.
Everyone but you, kiddo. Everyone but you.
Everyone but you.
Come on, kiddo. Order Crazy Puffs for $3.99 and get your game day delivered with Little Caesars.
Pizza, pizza.
Hey everyone, I'm Elizabeth Schulze. Our top story this hour, rescue and recovery operations are ongoing across the west coast of Central Florida after Hurricane Milton plowed through the state with Category 3 winds and life-threatening storm surge. The death toll is now up to 10, number that is expected to rise after Milton made landfall near Siesta Key, just south of Tampa, bringing along extreme winds, flash flooding, and at least 38 reported tornadoes. Reported storm surge of at least 5 to 6 feet is now inundating some of the most densely populated areas on the coast, including Fort Myers. More than 18 inches of rain also recorded in Pinellas County. Check out this video of Hillsborough County sheriffs rescuing a 14-year-old boy who was submerged by floodwaters and staying afloat by propping up on debris. Strong winds also causing a massive crane to collapse onto a building in St. Petersburg. An enormous piece of it you can see there lying across the road. Governor Ron DeSantis is urging residents to be mindful of ongoing threats as the cleanup continues.
Now, please remember, as you survey damage and you clean up, be cautious of any down power lines. They can be deadly. Do not touch them, and stay away from any debris that may be tangled within the power lines. Be careful of standing water.
Terry Parker from my ABC station WPBF in West Palm Beach has been on the ground following the latest. Terry, what do you see there?
Elizabeth, we are in Avenir in Palm Beach Gardens, where a tornado swept through yesterday afternoon, creating a lot of damage. Take a look. This Chevy just completely flipped upside down, almost dented, just pitted with the damage. The tree itself sheared off. This is just some of the damage that we've seen in this development. We're told about 100 homes were damaged when this twister came through. Look over here. Palm tree, that's nothing. The entire block wall crashed through. And then a pole that was supporting it, the man who lives back there in the orange shorts tells me this metal pole went flying through his window into the room where he and his wife were going to take shelter, but at the last minute, they went somewhere else. Windows are busted out everywhere. It's a big mess. And then if you look over here, people are already getting restoration on site because the roof tiles have been blown off, plywood covering the windows. People are telling me that they actually have sand and rocks stuck in their interior walls when this twister came through. It was about 5 p.m. And then look up at this house where you can see that the roof peeled away and you can actually see the plywood holding the roof in place. Kind of amazing because this is new construction. It was built in the last few years out here in western Palm Beach County, all built to Florida's stringent new building code. But even so, a twister like this with all of this force did so much damage. Luckily, we're told no injuries reported. I'm Terry Parker. Elizabeth, back to you.
Just remarkable, no injuries there. Terry Parker, thank you. Let's bring in WABC meteorologist Danny Beckstrom for the latest on Milton's path right now. Danny, what do we know?
Elizabeth, Milton is now post-tropical, but still with hurricane force winds sustained at about 75 miles per hour. It should continue to weaken as it heads out to sea. So impacts will start to improve, but it's going to take a while for the floodwater to completely recede. It's the reason so many flood warnings continue for 4 rivers in Florida, even as the actual rain is starting to pull away. Both the rain bands and the wind will start to back off as Milton pulls away from the Space Coast here. But it'll take until tonight to see tropical storm force winds relax, considering they extend about 310 miles away from the center of Milton. Things will continue to improve as we head into tonight, and by tomorrow, much calmer conditions expected for the peninsula, which means the cleanup can really begin. Category 5 to Category 3, that was the weakening we saw Milton undergo as it approached landfall. But as the wind speeds weakened, the wind field started to grow, which is why we saw such widespread impacts, making landfall last night at about 8 p.m. That's Wednesday night near Siesta Key as a major Category 3 hurricane. We certainly saw the triple-digit wind gusts for St. Pete, for Sarasota. Those areas seeing quite a bit of damage because of wind. But also you have to check out the rainfall totals. St. Pete, 18.5 inches, and Tampa now seeing the wettest year on record with a foot of rain falling in about 12 hours yesterday. Tornadoes were another big factor to this. At least 126 tornado warnings, which made it Florida's most active day in terms of tornado warnings. We saw at least 38 confirmed tornadoes. The National Weather Service continues to head out and track those confirmations. This now makes 3 landfalling hurricanes for Florida this season. That ties for most. And this also makes it the 3rd consecutive year that Florida has seen a major, which is a Category 3 or greater, landfall during the season. We saw 2 years ago Ida, last year Idalia, and now 2 major hurricanes making landfall in Florida in this year. Elizabeth?
Danny Beckstrom tracking this all day for us. Danny, thank you. And thank you for streaming with us. I'm Elizabeth Schulze. The news never stops. GMA 3 starts right now.
What you need to know right now on GMA 3.
Oh, there it was! Crazy!
Hurricane Milton last seen across Florida after making landfall in Siesta Key as a Category 3.
At least 19 confirmed
confirmed tornadoes, more than 3 million without power. I'm on the ground in Orlando. We'll have full team coverage on the worst of the damage and what happens next.
Sean Diddy Combs fighting to be released from jail. What his team is now saying about why he can't get a fair trial. Plus, the Menendez brothers case, the double murder back in the spotlight. Could new alleged evidence set the brothers free? Better Call Brian here with our deep dive into both high-profile cases.
Me retiro del tenis profesional.
The tennis legend, beloved around the world, putting down his racket. The announcement rocking fans.
So when the pimp's in the crib, ma, drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot.
Shop it like it's hot with our Millie Almodovar, celebrating Hispanic American Heritage Month, highlighting top products from successful entrepreneurs.
You loved her in Living Single. Erica Alexander is back in studio. Her trip down memory lane and why she's encouraging people to get out and vote.
The 2-1. Lindor towards right center field. This one is back. It is gone! Grand slam! And Lindor puts the Mets on top.
New York swinging its way toward the World Series. The Mets send the Phillies home, and the Yankees get a crucial win on the road.
Now, from Times Square, DeMarco Morgan and Eva Pilgrim with what you need to know.
And a good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to What You Need to Know. It is good to have you with us. Let's go ahead and get straight to it. A long and terrible night for millions of residents in Florida. Search and rescue efforts now underway. Hurricane Milton making landfall at Siesta Key as a Category 3 with winds of 120 miles per hour. My co-anchor, Eva Pilgrim, is on the ground in Orlando with the very latest for us. Eva, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, DeMarco. This hurricane was huge when it made landfall, so big that it basically covered the peninsula that is the state of Florida. And you have to remember, it was a hurricane when it made landfall on the west coast of Florida. It was still a hurricane when it went off on the east coast of Florida. And the damage is widespread. It started before the hurricane even landed, with tornadoes popping up everywhere. And then the hurricane making landfall, the wind, the rain, the water that came. 3.2 million households do not have power right now in the state of Florida, and they are just now beginning to assess the damage. Victor Oquendo is in Sarasota, Florida, very close to where that hurricane made landfall. Victor?
Eva, we are right at the entrance to Siesta Key. Hurricane Milton making landfall just on the other side of that bridge there. And right now, the sheriff's office here in Sarasota County, they're blocking any cars from entering. But what is happening, if you look over here to my right, you'll see residents, people eager to go check on their homes, and they're able to walk across that bridge. Now, at this point, we have been out here all morning long, and we've heard the same thing from every single resident who's crossed back over. They've told us they feel lucky. It's not as bad as Helene. I had one person tell me it looks like it's in great shape, all things considered. So that is definitely some good news there. But we have not been able to cross that bridge ourselves just yet. We have checked in with the county. They have told us that they're doing their initial damage assessment. They have a tactical team doing that. But Eva, all things considered, especially with that storm surge that was projected, that could have been twice that of Helene. From what we're hearing from residents, it sounds like Siesta Key, despite that being where Milton made landfall, seems like it's in good shape. Eva?
That is really reassuring news this afternoon, Victor. Let's check in now with Ginger Z in Fort Myers, Florida, with where Milton is headed next. Ginger?
Yeah, so Milton, the center of it, is out in the Atlantic. So, Eva, you know, we're standing here in Fort Myers. We had 5 to 6 feet of surge. We were grateful that it came in at low tide. You see the picture there. That's video from our hotel where the ocean is crashing over into the pool deck and into the pool. It filled that bottom level. And there was actually a shed at one point that got up to about doorknob level. So we definitely got a significant amount of surge, but we were so lucky that it happened at low tide. And a couple of things came together here. Siesta Key, because they took the front eye wall, I'd like to see video and pictures out of Venice, Florida, because you see where just south of there, that's that dirty side, the right front quadrant, where they'd have the most onshore flow with the most of those winds. Now, it was quite lopsided, too, because the biggest winds happened on the north side. Sarasota Florida 102. 18.5 inches of rain in St. Pete. That verified on the forecast really well for the flash flooding. 101 mile per hour gust there. Tampa had a 97. And even Daytona Beach earlier this morning had an 87 mile per hour gust. I was explaining that onshore flow, which was what happened for us here, and also Charlotte Harbor, and then the offshore flow, which gives you anti-surge. It actually can pull water out of the bays around Tampa and push it out to the ocean. Now that center is way off, and we're going to just see for the rest of the afternoon the numbers come down. It'll be breezy at best by the time you go to sleep. That'll be relief because a lot of people didn't sleep well last night. And I know everybody wants to say, okay, we got to be done for the season, right? Well, we're not quite done. We have 6 weeks left in hurricane season, and in October, the Gulf, especially Florida, can still be quite active. So we will be vigilant and watching. And I have to say, Eva, everybody keeps saying not as bad. They prepared so well. They evacuated so many people. This was one of the best evacuations and preparations I've ever seen, and I hope that that helped us to keep people safe.
Yeah, definitely, Ginger. That is something that we saw here in Orlando. All of the hotels around us completely full. People who evacuated that west coast of Florida to get out of harm's way. DeMarco, you know, the assessment of this damage is just beginning, and it covers the state. So we'll have to see just what this recovery effort looks like on the other side.
Yeah, so the day goes on. All right, Eva, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we'll check back in with you in just a moment. Dr. Darian with us now. You have friends there in that area who are doctors, so what are they telling you?
So I'm communicating with emergency physicians, most notably Dr. Megan Martin. She's in St. Petersburg, and that's right in front of Tampa. Now, that suffered significant wind damage. Thankfully, they just missed the eye, but she recounted on her experience. She's lived through the hurricane before Hurricane Helene. Her community's still recovering from that. And she talks about how many of the injuries come from the debris that we see, the debris on the ground, the debris in the water. Right now, the main problem in their hospital is that they lost water. Unfortunately, water obviously is needed. That has caused many hospitals to need to evacuate. And also the Tropicana Stadium, the roof was pulled up. And why is that significant? Because that's where many first responders were. Thankfully, the majority of them were able to get out safely. But right now is the wait and see. Many of those what we call walking wounded, those who have been injured by the shrapnel and the debris that has been in the streets. And the one word of caution, DeMarco, that she says is be cautious around flood water. It's not just water.
It's nothing to play with.
It's got debris in it. Also, downed electrical lines increase the risk of electrocution.
All right, Doc, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Still ahead on GMA3 on this Thursday, part of the roof was torn right off the home of the Tampa Bay Rays. That's what Dr. Darian just talked about. More than 3 million families are without power. We'll have more from Eva on the storm, and the mayor of Clearwater joins us. And later, we're digging into 2 high-profile criminal cases making headlines. What Diddy's team is now alleging, and the latest in the Menendez brothers case. Better call Brian when we come back. Stay with us.
All right, just got to carry my little cozy chair in, and we're done.
I'm just busy signing us up for renter's insurance. I can help later on when I'm...
Sign up for Lemonade Renter's Insurance in as little as 90 seconds. Usually, people love that.
Oh, I thought I lost these.
At Bombas, we make the most comfortable socks in the history of feet. So comfortable, you'll wish you had more. Visit bombas.com and get 20% off your first order.
Hey, what are those? Little Caesar's Crazy Puffs. Everyone's getting them. Yeah, kiddo. Everyone but you.
Everyone but you.
Everyone but you.
Everyone but you, kiddo.
Everyone but you.
Everyone but
Come on, kiddo. Order Crazy Puffs for $3.99 and get your game day delivered with Little Caesars.
Pizza, pizza.
Oh my God, it's Bob Dylan.
How does it feel? Have you on your own? Like a complete unknown.
This film is not yet rated.
Welcome back to GMA3. Residents of Florida assessing the damage and flooding following Hurricane Milton's landfall. And my co-anchor Eva Pilgrim is on the ground again in Orlando with the latest on this story. What do you have for us, Eva?
DeMarco, let's bring in the mayor of Clearwater, Bruce Rector. Mayor, thank you so much for being with us today. If you could start by just explaining to us what it looks like there on the ground for your city.
Well, thank you, Eva. We have a lot of wind damage. We had hurricane force winds. We had flooding in areas of our city that normally don't flood. That's consistent with the entire county. I think there are 400,000 customers in just our county alone that do not have electricity right now. And so we're assessing all that wind damage. We've got trees blocking roadways. We've got electrical lines down. And so we've suffered significant damage with wind, but also we had flooding in areas of our city we normally don't have. So we had to rescue a number of folks from an apartment complex this morning.
And I know that you guys had that message for people there to evacuate if they were in the zones to evacuate. This day now, what is your message to those people about when to return?
Well, they may be allowed to get back to their homes as soon as now, but we encourage them to stay off the roads today. We have so much electricity that needs to be restored, so much that needs to be cleared, that if they're out and about just checking things out, looking, taking pictures, they're going to impede our service workers from restoring services, essential services to our citizens. So if you don't have to be out today, please stay home. Tend to your yard, tend to those things around your home that may have been broken in the storm last night, but please stay off the roads.
You know, Mayor, I'm at a hotel here in Orlando, and we've had so many people from your area that evacuated. I've had a chance to speak with them. I mean, this was just a 1-2 punch. First Helene and then Milton. How does that make this a more complex recovery process?
Well, I really feel like we've had one major hurricane, a direct hit, with combining the two over 2 weeks. We had the storm surge that was devastating 2 weeks ago, and now we've had the wind and the heavy rainfall in this second hurricane. So you combine it all, and it's really been very stressful, obviously, not just on our residents, but our service workers, our first responders. But we'll get through this. We'll assess the damage this morning. I've been with our team already today out in the field. They're already hard at work, and they're committed to making sure that we return services as quickly as possible to folks, and that at the end of the day, we restore this community, this region, Tampa Bay, to make it better than ever.
Mayor Bruce Rector, the mayor of Clearwater, Florida, thank you so much for joining us today. And you know, DeMarco, speaking with those families, they haven't been in their houses, some of them, for 2 weeks. They're ready to go home. They have little kids and animals, and they just want to start rebuilding.
And the mayor is right. We'll get through this. All right, Eva, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Still ahead on GMA3, the rest of the day's headlines. And later, we're going to shop it like it's hot with a nod to Hispanic Heritage Month. Millie's here. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Hulu is on Disney Plus.
It's right there.
There it is. Just push the green button.
Is this the best idea we've ever had?
And see just how much there is to discover.
You know this is happening.
Voila!
Hulu on Disney Plus.
What's up at DQ? 2 sauced and tossed chicken strip baskets. All white meat chicken in your choice of wing famous flavors like honey barbecue or Parmesan garlic. Hurry in. Wing joint flavor is at DQ. DQ. Happy tastes good.
Attention teachers, no child is to be sent to the principal's office today. Kids, if you want to do crime, now's the time. Happy first day of school.
It's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony as music's highest honor goes to this year's inductees with performances by today's biggest stars. Outrageous! The 2024 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony streaming live October 19th on Disney+.
Aye, it was a grand adventure. Vibrant music. Grim grinning ghosts.
Charlie, let's go.
Unbelievable awaits on the all-new Disney Treasure.
Reporting from the path of Hurricane Helene in Tampa, Florida, I'm Rena Roy. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
All right, welcome back to GMA3. Let's check in now with ABC's Jay O'Brien for a look at your latest headlines. Jay, good to see you.
DeMarco, good afternoon to you, and we do begin with those new economic numbers just in. Consumer prices 2.4% higher in September compared to a year ago, but inflation dropping to its lowest point since February 2021. The Dow hitting another record high yesterday, the 35th time this year. And the severe solar storm now forecasted that could further stress power grids. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration issuing a severe geomagnetic storm watch for today and tomorrow. Scientists warn that interference could temporarily disrupt power and radio signals. Sean Diddy Combs due in court today. His legal team pushing for him to get released on bail. The music mogul has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking charges. His team accusing federal investigators of unlawful leaks. Much more on that coming up later here on GMA3. And beloved tennis legend Rafael Nadal is putting down his racket, telling fans in a heartfelt social media post today that everything has a beginning and an end, saying farewell to professional tennis after the Davis Cup and nearly 24 Grand Slam championships. And the back-to-school season bluey news that will likely excite just as many parents as young children. A new bunch of brand new mini episodes now dropping this month, streaming on Disney+. Disney, of course, the parent company of ABC. And could a World Series Subway showdown be shaping up? The Mets knocking out the Phillies with this grand slam from the Mets shortstop, now on their way to their first NLCS in nearly a decade. And the Yankees, by the by, beating the Royals a step closer to winning the ALCS. A Subway Series may be shaping up. Who knows, DeMarco?
Hey, we'll have to wait and see. But you know what? I can tell you this, Jay. Got some Phillies fans in here who are hurting right now in the studio.
As a Yankees fan, I won't acknowledge what you said.
Love to see it. All right, man. Good to see you, bro. When we come back, guarding against this health threat after the storm. Dr. Darian joins us next. And you loved her and living single as Maxine. Her new mission right now with Erica Alexander is determined to get you to do as the election closes in. Come on back.
Since forever, we've hated Mondays. Monday. But it doesn't have to be like this. Introducing Monday Hair Care. Our modern, award-winning formulas. Smooth, hydrate, and protect against whatever life throws at you. No more bad Mondays. Monday Hair Care.
It's a full moon outside. The weirdos are out.
Did you hear what she called you?
They're evil.
They really hurt my feelings.
Hocus Pocus 1 and 2 on Freeform.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Attention teachers, no child is to be sent to the principal's office today. Kids, if you want to do prom, now's the time. Happy first day of school.
Yes! Weren't there like 4 more of these?
Yeah, we were robbed.
Hey, buy 3, get 1 free. I'ma call your mother on you. Bring the rest back here, boy.
Hey friends, excuse me miss, does anyone have a Walt Disney World moment?
Yeah, let me find it. Our son, we adopted him. That Mickey Mouse was the first gift that we had ever given him. We went on the Jungle Cruise. He ended up dropping the Mickey Mouse into the water. The cast members stopped the ride to get that Mickey Mouse. They said, no kid should go a day in the Magic Kingdom without their stuffed Mickey or Minnie. Seeing your kid experience Disney for the first time, it makes you feel like a kid all over again. It's amazing.
We are back now with Dr. Darian on this World Mental Health Day with tips on finding the right therapist for you. What do we need to know, Doc?
I think you have to go through certain steps. Number one, therapy can benefit anyone and everyone. I think the most important first step is understanding what you need help with. Is it depression? Is it anxious feelings? Are you stressed with work, your family, your relationships? that is what you want to sit down and hone down before you start that step in order to getting help.
Let's talk finances. It's expensive.
It's incredibly expensive. And going through the avenues can be really cumbersome. I think the first step is checking with your insurance provider to make sure that it's covered or just to see if it's covered. Unfortunately, there are many times when it isn't. And if it is, you have to remember that you often have to pay up front and then you'll get that payment back and get reimbursed. And so you have to look to those options. I think one other option that might be cost effective is looking for telehealth therapy. I think it's really helpful, it's accessible, and it might even be cheaper.
Yeah, and can be convenient, so people might do it more often. How do you find someone who has the right credentials, making sure you're talking to someone who really knows what they're doing?
Great point. A lot of the times it can be alphabet soup when looking at the letters at the end of our names when we're providers. I know that can be confusing. Also understand that many different avenues to becoming a therapist, it often requires at least a master's degree level of education, and then you get a provisional license where you're then monitored, and then you can apply for the formal license. So I think understanding that process, understanding where your therapist is, not to say people can't help along that process, but it's really important just to know where your therapist is.
And somebody that you like, that works for you, because it's not a one-size-fits-all.
It's very true. I'm glad you bring that up. And also to remember, it's usually more than 1 or 2 times. Many people suggest going at least 3 times. Therapy is not easy. It is work. And so you have to remember it's not always comfortable. Try to go at least more than once before you make your decision on changing it.
And it's not linear. Sometimes you need it, and sometimes you need it more than others. You just got to stay consistent.
Know that from personal experience.
All right, Doc, I'm back in a moment. Thank you.
Since forever, we've hated Mondays. Monday. But it doesn't have to be like this. Introducing Monday Hair Care. Our modern, award-winning formulas. Smooth, hydrate, and protect against whatever life throws at you. No more bad Mondays. Monday Hair Care.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Live reporting, breaking new exclusives. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Trick or treat!
When I flick this switch, there'll be a horrible noise and a terrible odor. Will it hurt? Pain like you've never known. Oh!
Seems risky. I am much satisfied.
What? You scared? This is happiness.
We love Halloween. Got me.
He's a bit silly.
Turning the machine off! Do you feel good?
Here.
Thanks.
I like it. I'm gonna get us a snack.
It's lunchtime in America, so what are we serving up?
Well, how about everything you need to know?
Your health, your money, breaking news, pop culture, with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food.
It's all coming up on GMA3.
You're going to love it. We'll see you then.
GMA3, what you need to know. A third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us, afternoon.
For everything you need to know.
I love that.
Me too.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. ABC News Live. Breaking news, exclusives, live reporting across the globe. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Hey everyone, I'm Elizabeth Schulze. Our top story this hour, rescue and recovery operations are ongoing across the west coast of central Florida after Hurricane Milton plowed through the state with Category 3 winds and life-threatening storm surge. At least 10 people are dead. That's a number that is expected to rise after Milton made landfall near Siesta Key, just south of Tampa, bringing along extreme winds, flash flooding, and at least 38 reported tornadoes. The predicted storm surge of 5 to 6 feet now inundating some of the most densely populated areas on the coast, including Fort Myers. More than 18 inches of rain also recorded in Pinellas County. Strong winds also causing major damage. You can see a massive crane collapsed onto a building in St. Petersburg, an enormous piece of it lying across the road there. And the roof of the Tropicana Field, home of the Tampa Bay Rays, was also ripped off and exposed to the night sky. The MLB Network giving us a new look at that damage, sharing this video of the baseball park as Milton tore through downtown St. Pete. Our Jacqueline Lee is on the ground there in St. Petersburg and joins me now. Jacqueline, see that video of just how damaging those winds were to Tropicana Field. It's right behind you. What are you seeing around you, and what kind of recovery efforts are underway there?
Oh, that's right, Elizabeth. You know, the reason why we were looking over here is because a private helicopter, it appears to be just parked right in front of the field. We're not quite sure what exactly is going on, but it looks like we saw some kids come out. But ultimately, yes, there's a lot of damage here at Tropicana Field. You can see the roof was torn off. That roof was made of fiberglass, and the fiberglass was supposed to withstand wind gusts up to 115 miles an hour. Obviously, people are still surveying the damage. The Tampa Bay Rays did acknowledge that teams are going to be out assessing what exactly happened, and then obviously trying to figure out how to move from here. Now, in terms of the damage overall, we're seeing a lot of trees down, a lot of roofs ripped off. But the biggest issue right now here in Pinellas County is not only is the power out, but also the water is out. So more than 400,000 customers here in the St. Petersburg area are without power. We know crews are working around the clock to get that restored. But in terms of, there have also been rescues, water rescues that we saw in Clearwater. You know, at least 400 people have been rescued from that. And then over in Hillsborough County, more than 725 people were rescued. So even though Milton moved through the state, there's still a lot of cleanup to be done. Elizabeth.
We know, Jacqueline, that many residents are still without running water and millions still without power. What are you hearing about the efforts to restore those vital services?
So we've heard this repeated multiple times from officials, especially Governor DeSantis. There were 50,000 linemen who were ready to jump into action prior to Hurricane Milton making landfall. Now they are all over the state working to get things restored. So throughout Florida, more than 3.3 million people are without power, but they did restore power to more than 880,000 people. So that means more than 4 million people were initially without power as a result of this hurricane. We do know they're working around the clock to get that restored, but unfortunately, just given the magnitude of the storm, we're not entirely sure when exactly everyone will be getting power. But there are concerns about generators, though. Officials have been emphasizing you want to make sure those generators are outside. They don't want other people to get injured as a result of misusing generators. And we were just looking at the helicopter just to see if there was any sort of development with that, but it looks like no.
And finally, Jacqueline, you know, we heard from Florida Governor DeSantis warning people who are coming back to their homes to still be careful. There's a lot of debris on the roads. What are you seeing there? What are you hearing about what it will take to get people back who evacuated in this massive cleanup effort?
So there's actually a big word of caution because there's still a lot of water. Some places dealt with flooding because there are power lines out down trees. That is a huge concern because if you think of supercharged power lines in water, if you step into that water, then you're not going to be in a good situation. But also, we're here in Florida. We saw a snake not that long ago, and so you never really know, especially if there's standing water, what is exactly inside of it. So officials say that you want to be very cautious. You don't want to be running into anything immediately. So take things slow until things can properly get cleaned up. Elizabeth.
That would have terrified me. Jacqueline Lee, glad that you are all okay there. Thank you so much for reporting for us all day on this. Let's keep the focus on St. Petersburg now and bring in the city's police chief, Anthony Holloway, for more on those recovery efforts. Chief, thanks so much for being here. How would you rate the damage that you're seeing now around St. Petersburg? What is the state of what you're out seeing as part of the recovery efforts today?
It's very tragic what happened here, and the city team is doing a great job. The water was out all day. We got that back up and going now. We still have a lot of power outage here. So what we're mainly trying to focus on now with Duke Energy is to get those power back up. It's going to be dark here pretty soon. A lot of our intersections are out, so we're trying to make sure people are being careful, treating where those signs are out, like a four-way stop sign. And like I said, there's a lot of damage, a lot of trees down, so we're just trying to remind people to slow down and be careful.
Talk to us about some of the calls your team, your officers have responded to over the past 12 hours as this storm has really unfolded.
Most of the calls we responded to have been rescue calls. We responded to, you know, I was in my house. Can someone please come and get me? We had to tell those people we had to wait for the storm to pass. We were very fortunate that we didn't have really that many fatalities. We did have 2 fatalities that were storm related. And we feel sorry for that family. We wish that family well to see if we can get past that. But Most of the people did do exactly what we asked them to do. They did leave the city. They did leave the county. So that really helped out. They did evacuate, so we could have probably seen worse. I see on your video right now showing a picture of the trop, and my office is right across from there. In the middle of the night, I saw the top coming off the trop.
And we've been showing those images, just shows you the power of the wind. We've also been showing images, Chief, of this massive crane collapse in St. Petersburg onto that building. Can you explain to us why that crane was even there? We knew that there would be these powerful winds. It seems like it was clearly a threat just being there as the storm was hitting.
Sure. So the city of St. Petersburg has done a lot of great development, and the city notified the developer a couple of days ago about the crane, about the storm coming through, and about some of the things that could happen if that crane remained up. It was rated for, I believe, 120 miles per hour, and we saw exactly what Milton was able to do. We're very fortunate that it crashed to the ground without injuring anyone, and we're in the process now of clearing that crane off the street so we can open it back up to vehicle and pedestrian traffic.
Chief, you mentioned you saw the roof flying off of the baseball field. What was that like, witnessing that? Pretty striking to see those images after the fact where there's just a hole.
Yeah, I've been for 10 years, and when I first saw it looking out my window, I wasn't sure what I was seeing because it was so dark, and then I just saw little by little they're just ripping it apart, and within, I would say within an hour, you can just see that whole roof just come apart.
Pretty remarkable, and will be an intense rebuilding effort, no doubt. St. Petersburg Police Chief Anthony Holloway, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
And if you are impacted by Hurricane Milton and in need of any help or resources, please be sure to call the FEMA hotline. That's 1-800-621-3362, or you can download the FEMA app. Thank you for streaming with us. I'm Elizabeth Schulze. The news never stops. More GMA 3 right now.
Welcome back to GMA 3. The Menendez brothers are once again making headlines almost 30 years after they were convicted of killing their parents.
And Eric and Lyle Menendez have long claimed that they killed their parents in self-defense after years of abuse. Now the Los Angeles District Attorney says he will review new evidence in this case. Here to break it all down for us in this edition of Better Call Brian is ABC News contributor Brian Buckmeyer. Thank you so much for being with us.
Always a pleasure.
All right, before we get into this case, which people are talking about, we have to talk about Diddy first, if we could. The hip-hop mogul due back in court today. His attorneys are now claiming that the DOJ leaked information and that that's going to compromise his trial. Will that have any mileage?
Yeah, so I think it will have mileage in the sense of they can make the argument. Whether or not they can prove there's a leak, that's another question. The defense attorney is saying that the leak of the video, specifically that video of Sean Combs assaulting Cassie, prejudice him in a way that he's not going to have a fair trial, and even could have potentially affected this bail argument and why he's still incarcerated. But they've got to somehow prove that there's a leak. They're also pointing the finger at DHS, who led the search of his two homes, as potentially leaking the information.
All right, and so how are federal prosecutors responding?
So Damian Williams, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, has already come out and said that they didn't even have possession of that video before it got leaked. And they're saying, and it kind of devil's in the details, that they don't believe that DHS had it either or released it. So there's still a bit of a search. The defense attorneys are asking for an evidentiary hearing to kind of flush it out.
Let's talk about the Menendez brothers now. Back in the spotlight, making national headlines. You get two projects now on Netflix. Kim Kardashian is calling for their release because of new evidence. How much does public opinion play in a case like this, especially when you've had changes over the years?
So I would say it plays a large part in it for probably multiple reasons. Two come to mind first. First and foremost, don't forget, state prosecutors are often elected officials. And George Gascon, the LA District, or the LA County, District Attorney, he's up for re-election on December 1st. He's currently going through an election. So public opinion of how this case went down definitely is going to affect his re-election. But the other aspect too is how we view evidence. And that's a big argument the defense is making here. They're saying that back in the late 80s, early 90s, the perspective or the perception of young boys or young men being sexually abused was not the way that it was today.
Walk us through the motions that the defense is now going to present as new evidence in this case.
So there are two main motions. There's what's called a writ of habeas corpus, a fancy legal term, just say that the body is here, they're bringing someone forward, and a resentencing motion. That writ is them arguing that there could have been a different outcome if this new evidence was presented either at the trial level or at sentencing. And the resentencing is making that second argument that if this information was there, particularly this new facts that they found about a letter that was signed by Eric 8 or 9 months prior to the actual killing, as well as a member of a boy band saying that he too was sexually assaulted by Jose Menendez, the father of the two men, that could have changed the trajectory of this case both at trial and at resentencing. And this motion, or these motions, are trying to make that argument.
So what are the options for the DA and what comes next?
So what comes next is that there's going to be a hearing at the end of November, and the DA is going to first just check out the authenticity. Is this letter actually real? Are these statements by this boy band member, is it actually correct? And if those are proven to be true, then the question becomes, how could this information have affected the trial if it was presented at that time?
What does it mean to have imperfect self-defense? Because we keep hearing this and it will arise in this trial.
Yeah, so imperfect self-defense is very specific to that of California, but you might hear it in other instances as well. It's easier to describe self-defense first. Self-defense is when I subjectively believe that I am in danger of physical harm, and I subjectively believe that I need to use imminent force to protect myself. And then the last part is you all, being the jurors or society, objectively believe I'm correct. When we talk about an imperfect self-defense, those first two parts might apply, that I subjectively believe I'm in danger and that I need to use force, but objectively you all say, that's not right. And that's an imperfect self-defense. For a perfect self-defense, I'm completely off on the charges. I commit murder, I did it in self-defense, I'm no longer charged with murder. For imperfect, if I do that, I'm still charged with murder, but I can go down for manslaughter rather than the charges going away altogether.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, of course, as always, for sharing your insights, Brian Buckmeyer. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And when we come back, get ready to go shopping with us.
Beauty and lifestyle expert Millie Almodovar is here to shop it like it's hot in Hispanic Heritage Month style. Come on back, everybody. Hey, Millie!
Hey! When my hair started to thin, I thought, am I going to have any hair left?
After I gave birth, my hair wasn't even thinning, it was gone.
When I spoke to my dermatologist, he immediately pointed me in the direction of Nutrafol.
It's 100% drug-free and clinically tested.
Within 3 months, my hair was fuller.
It's longer, it's so much thicker.
I had more scalp coverage.
It was so nice to be noticed for my hair after hiding it for so many years.
Start your hair growth journey at Nutrafol.com.
More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source. You're watching America's #1 streaming news, ABC News Live.
Esto es Betty.
Where are you?
At the doctor. What? That is so good. I'm Mexican. I'm proud of it.
Here.
Thanks.
Pretty solid solution.
I like it. Oh, I'm gonna get us a snack.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
This is our Combat Operations Center.
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions. Operational nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it. Not a tear in it. How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
David, good to meet you. Ismail? David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Macedo live in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. You're watching ABC News Live.
Drop it like it's hot.
All right, welcome back to GMA3. I bet everybody at home is like this when it comes on. You know what I'm saying? Then it's time to shop it like it's hot. And today, our friend, beauty and lifestyle expert Millie Almodovar is here to highlight Hispanic-owned brands in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. Good to see you.
Great to see you. Hi. Okay. Love it. Okay, but you can shop with us. Go to goodmorningamerica.com or you can scan the QR code right there on your screen. You don't want to miss out. Okay.
First,
starting with spices.
Yes, we're starting with spices. This is Maritza's Abruz blend. She is Dominican, which is where I am from. Her brand is called Pisqueya. Now, let me tell you, doesn't it smell good? Yeah, so Maritza realized something. There was no authentic Latin flavors and seasonings on grocery store shelves. And you guys might be like, yes, there are. I see them all the time.
You have to mix it all.
Yeah, but those brands, many of those brands are filled with fillers, dyes, MSG, massive sodium. In the Dominican Republic, that's not how things are made. Everything is farm to table, sourced from farms. So that's what she did. She created Pisqueya. All of her ingredients are natural. Everything is sourced from farms. And let me tell you, her sazon, if you guys don't know about sazon, I need you to cook with some sazon. Okay, every Dominican has adobo and sazon in their house. Sazon gives your food like coloring. That's why it's so orange. Beautiful. But it also gives your food just this delicious taste. I put it in my rice and my meat. After today, put it in everything. Yes, you're going to love it. And call me and let me know how you like it.
All right, I'm going to need the recipes. Okay, beautiful sunglasses you got here.
Yes, this is from Desi Perkins. Desi is Mexicana. This is Desi Eyewear. Beyonce, Ciara, Usher. They have all been seen. Yes, look at that. Okay, Beyonce was just seen with these. These are called the Toxica sunglasses. Yes, look at her. Oh my God.
They
look amazing on you. So Desi was actually a beauty influencer, and she decided to first she created a skincare line, then she created an eyewear line. Beautiful. And when I tell you, when she releases her sunglasses, they can sell out in a day.
But we've got them, folks.
That's how, yeah, we've got them right here. And if you want to look like Beyonce, get yourself some Toxicas.
Okay, what's the deal here?
Yeah. Oh, so the price. Well, the price of this is $89.
Okay.
But you can feel like Beyonce when you're wearing them. Yeah.
I'm gonna go for the silver.
Okay. Next, Better Not Younger. This is from Sonsoles Gonzalez. She is from Venezuela. So Sonsoles actually worked in the beauty industry, and she realized something. There are no hair care lines specifically targeted for women in their 40s and in their 50s, because women in their 40s and 50s have different concerns than women in their 20s and 30s. Thinning, massive drying. Yep. So she created Better Not Younger. Her Lift Me Up hair thickener, which is this. DeMarco, do you want to try it? So what I like to do, this has niacinamide, it has ceramides, it has biotin. It has been shown to make your hair look 74% thicker.
So you do dry or wet?
Yeah, you can do dry or wet. Yeah, so you put it right on your scalp.
Oh, it looks thick.
Oh, yeah. You see that?
Thicker.
How much is this? This is $24.
Great, amazing.
Not bad.
This is precious.
Okay, yeah, so this is, we're boy moms. Yeah, so this is from Andrea Garcia Fry. She is Peruvian. So isn't that adorable? So she created Arquia. Yeah, so Arquia she's a mother of 2 toddlers, and she wanted to make Peruvian peanut cotton clothes accessible to just about everyone. So she created Arquia, and this is the Sunny Day children's set clothing. This goes up to 18 months. They've got this in reds and in all different colors, but this is breathable Peruvian Pima cotton. So your baby's gonna be comfortable and just feeling,
and you can snuggle them. We have some crew members who are expecting babies.
Oh, so there you go, guys.
They're gonna be snatching these up.
Yes.
We're almost out of time, Millie.
Oh, okay.
So you good?
This is the Infuse. It's the Yerba Mate Night Revival Eye Cream. So this is from, her name is Laura Schmoisman. She's from Argentina. She was very much inspired by her grandmother. Her grandmother used to drink yerba mate, which is a South American remedy, but her grandmother was beautiful, and she realized that yerba mate, because it has a high level of caffeine, could be actually very beneficial in skincare. Right. So this is for the under eye area. Not only does it have the yerba mate, which has caffeine, what does caffeine do?
It plumps and
it depuffs actually.
It puffs out.
Yes, but it also it's going to depuff those bags that you may have. It has vitamin C in it. It has magnesium in it. This is $72.
Okay.
And last but not least,
We've got a man, Manny. This is Manny Gutierrez.
Ooh, look at the sparkles.
It's the Lunar Beauty Nude Prism Eye Palette. So Manny's from Mexico. Manny was one of the first ever male beauty YouTube influencers. He was actually also the first ever male face of Maybelline makeup. So he now has started his own beauty empire.
Gorgeous.
This palette is my go-to. You've got 12 mattes, and then you've got 6 reflective shades. Do you guys see?
I want the camera.
Hold on. Go. Let's do a close-up on eyes.
Yeah.
I am wearing the palette right now. Do you see that?
Wow.
Can we do a close-up on my eyes?
You don't have to do a close-up. You can see it.
You are glowing.
Yeah, you can get this for $48. But this is a palette that you can take from day to night.
Yeah, prior to the holiday season. These are all great ideas. Millie, thank you so much. You can shop these products and more on your on the QR code on your screen right now. Just head to goodmorningamerica.com to check them out.
It was a lot of fun. When GMA3 comes back, new reasons to get out and vote.
What you need to know about voter eligibility as Election Day approaches. Star Erica Alexander joins us right here. We're back here in a moment. Stay with us.
Being the weather authority isn't something that I take lightly.
When you're the authority, people count on it.
We now have the technology to be able to get down to that street level.
To be as precise as possible.
Critical severe weather information that's thorough and accurate, that's what it means to be the weather authority.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Hey, good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America. You don't just see it, you feel it.
I'm in. I'm in.
I'm in too. I am in. I'm in.
I'm in too.
I'll be there.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed. Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas, Edinburgh, Scotland.
Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi.
Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw. We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City. Getting you behind the stories as they happen. ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights wherever you stream your news. Only on ABC News Live.
When you're 61 years old, you have few opportunities to change your life. I don't feel invisible now.
This ship is heaven. There should be no guilt on a pleasure cruise. Doctor, it's your job to keep everybody alive.
No pulse. She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
Friday, the love triangle that ended in murder.
It was a mess, yes.
But that's not even the most shocking part of the story. Wow. 2020 on ABC.
Don't show up.
Welcome back to GMA3. We are deep in election season, as all of you know, and nothing is more important than getting out there and having your voice heard.
That is so true. And thanks to a partnership between the Hometown Project and Head Count's Good to Vote sweepstakes program, there's even more reason to check your voter eligibility. And actress Erica Alexander is all in on the cause, and she's back here in our studio. Let's make some noise for our friend, who we just love having on the show.
Glad to be here.
When I saw you, I was like, what's up, what's up?
Good to be with you.
Talking about voting. Are you good to vote? That's what we're asking today.
That is a good question.
Yes,
yeah.
And it's an initiative that's about hometown voting, local voting, so I'm glad to talk about it.
Why did you choose to get involved?
Well, you know, it kind of chose me too. You know, a lot of things do. I was at an event with the great Billy Crudup, and we were talking political, which is kind of, you know, you can get into it. And he told me about being on an advisory board of the Hometown Project. And he said, would you like to, you know, be involved? I said, of course. I mean, I'll be involved. And basically what they do is just make sure that you can go somewhere and find out if you're registered to vote, what's your status, what's your polling place, and also get more information for your friends and family.
All right, so get involved. But we have to talk about your legendary career. It has been 40 years. I don't mean to date you, because you look fabulous.
She looks good. It's okay.
Look, The Cosby Show, Living Single, American Fiction, and now recently this retrospective on your mid-career milestone. How does it feel to look back at your body of work and know there's still more to come?
I'm humbled. I'm humbled. I'm grateful if the film that found me in Philadelphia at New Freedom Theater hadn't come find me, I would have been doing something else. But Johnny Allen Jr. and Robert Leslie created a theater for kids and in the inner city to learn creative and culture skills. And they found me and I got a shot. It became my career, but the city of Philadelphia is directly responsible for pouring into me.
We were doing some homework and learned a few things about your inspiration.
Yeah.
This is
You're a part of my story. Statistically, I don't know if many at home know this, but your character representation, Maxine Shaw, which many of us remember and know well, is associated to an increased rate of young people of color getting involved in law and other professional capabilities. Thank you. I love and proud to say I'm one of those people. I remember, I'll never forget seeing you step on that stage.
I don't even remember you suckling at my breast. But you have turned out so lovely, Doc.
He was a baby back then.
Breast milk is great. It's called the Maxine Shaw effect. It's called the Maxine Shaw effect.
You never know what you're going to hear.
Let me tell you something. Hey, you know what? It's called the Maxine Shaw effect. You can go to MaxineShawEffect.com and read about it. It's important. We commissioned a study with the Representation Project, and it was to see, did representation matter? And it does. And so to have people like Stacey Abrams and Ayanna Pressley come and say, hey, it's because of that character. So what we're trying to do is make sure we have a curriculum to talk about it. So we did one with the Langston League. Erica Bunnington, one of the best people who can write curriculum, wrote that, and so we did that, and we are allowed to use the footage from Living Single, and so that's an initiative, and we're going to put that as a pilot program in Jackson, Mississippi, and in Gwinnett County, and in Philadelphia. So I'm telling you, I'm American made and born and bred in these places.
You are loved.
So thank you.
You are loved.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so much, Erica, for being with us, and of course reminding us how important it is to get out there, make your voice heard.
Make sure you're good
your
to vote,
voice,
y'all.
your vote.
Yes.
You always start some trouble, you know?
Come here, son. Come to mommy. Come to mommy.
And that is what you need to know for this Thursday. I'm DeMarshall Morgan, everyone.
And I'm Ariel Russia.
I'm her missing child, Dr. Jackson.
For even all of us here at ABC News, have a good one, and we will see you tomorrow. Bravo.
You look just like me.
It works just like it works.
When my hair started to thin, I thought, am I going to have any hair left?
After I gave birth, my hair wasn't even thinning, it was gone.
When I spoke to my dermatologist, he immediately pointed me in the direction